Welcome to the world of Q&A, sir. And JT, we've got a very, very special festive episode for you today. Every Thursday, you see me on a weird gaming background with some equally weird OST playing for you. But on this very, very special occasion, for a multitude of reasons, I have invited my friend JT, who you may know from this channel or elsewhere. We'll get into that in a minute, but you may know from this channel as my Halo comrade, the Chaster Thief. Multiple reasons that he's here. First one is that game news is fairly slow, and a lot of the topics of today's show are going to be centered around the year's gaming events. I'm inept, and I don't know what happened this year and what happened at any other point for the rest of my life, so I figured I'm going to lean on competent JT to help guide the conversation in that sense, as well as all of you good people that are coming to watch, because you know how this works. We've got a nice little back and forth on the conversations. Before I allow my Harry Kane looking friend to actually fall asleep, I'm going to let him say some words. JT, please say hello to everyone and give a brief introduction to yourself.
Hello, everyone. I mean, if that's the kind of setup I'm going to get, there's really nothing else I can do or say that will top that. Thank you so much, obviously, for having me, Asa. This is, I love the way you've branded this a festive episode. This is, the wholesome, jolly vibes right now are in full swing. So thank you so much for having me. We've spent the better part of the last sort of year off and on doing various sort of streaming experiments and fun. Halo, obviously, our full playthrough of Halo CE was kind of our main event, and from my perspective, some of the most fun I've had on streams. Whereas the flip, of course, now is that I've always kind of just been, as everyone else is, just a viewer of Q&A. So to be able to be part of this to round out the year, it absolutely is festive vibes, and very, very glad to be here.
Oh, it's fantastic. So, I mean, thousands of people know it because there was this YouTube and TikTok short of a moment from Halo 2 Legendary with the Jackal Sniper. You know the one oh so well. For anyone that wants to see any of that, though, the whole playthrough of Halo 1 on Legendary with the two of us and a whole load of laughs, it's still available to go and watch. There's a little highlight video as well from bits and pieces of it. Before we get into the topics, and all of you know exactly how this works, we always like to start with what games we're all playing right now. So me, all of you in chat, and today JT as well. But before we do that, a word from our sponsor. It's Game On Daily. I'm not prepared. One moment. Game On Daily are freaking inept. They're not even prepared for the sponsorship segment. Give it a second. So Game On Daily is a wonderful website that you can go to for all of your gaming news. Find new content creators such as JT here. He submits content from ThatHITBOX to the platform as well. But all kinds of content creators, big and small, submitting stuff there, all kinds of people to meet and talk to. So use it and you will find new bestest favorite people that are less irritating than the ones that you follow right now, probably. We have a second sponsor today because, of course, we have a second sponsor today. We're also being sponsored today by ThatHITBOX. There it is on screen. This is ThatHITBOX website run and owned by JT. And what you see in front of you, this nice ad-free, smooth layout. I've not got an ad blocker here. This is what the website looks like. So let's have a direct word from the owner of ThatHITBOX so people know what to expect there. Go for it, JT.
Yeah, kind of what started kind of just a hobby and just a few friends.
Ooh. JT, pause for 1 second because I can't hear you properly. It's of course, as a stream, technical difficulties and things have started going ever so slightly wrong. Can I fix that from here? Say some words now.
Say what? Do some words.
Oh, do you know it's not your fault though? So don't change anything right now. Ooh, everyone can see slight bits of troubleshooting as we go, and that's fine. That's fine. I know what to do. Or do I? While things are happening, what pain. Nobody wants technical difficulties today, least of all me. I'm just going to pause and see if it fixes itself for a moment. So JT, we'll come back to the conversations in a second and see what happens there. So we will resume our sponsored segment in just a moment. While I'm looking at that though, if you are here in chat now, you know what's coming next. You know that we're going to go into games that we're playing right now. So have a little think about what you are playing over the course of the last week or two. Start putting those games in chat so we can talk about those. I have been playing. I had an exciting power cut this week that changed everything for me, which might sound ridiculous. It should sound ridiculous. You might see some funny things on JT's face just for a moment, because I must try and fix this issue while we're going. Yeah, JT's completely disappeared, but it's not his fault. He's still with us. Oh, is it going to break if I change this? Plotting and planning. Now let's bring JT back for a second while I do some figuring. I've been playing. I had a power cut, a fortuitous power cut that has taught me something about the PlayStation 5. So everybody knows that when you have a power cut on the PlayStation 5, it gets angry with you. It tells you, like, you shouldn't have treated me this way. I might not work for you ever again. Think about it next time, and all the rest of it. It throws a proper hissy fit. It beeps and all the rest of it. But it set me free from the grip of God of War. Because I've noticed in myself a behavior with the PlayStation 5, because you have this suspend resume feature where it's not quick resume like on the Xbox. It suspends one game in the way that the previous Xbox did as well. So you turn that console off and you turn it back on. In theory, like 60% of the time, the game that you're playing is there ready to pick up and carry on with. And what I find is that on the Xbox with quick resume, I bounce between millions and millions of games because they're all just there ready to go and you don't really need to think about it. On the PC and the VR systems, there is no kind of suspend resume. There is no anything of that kind of function, but it leaves me just as free because there's no disadvantage to changing games. I can say, I was playing whatever I was playing, Call of Duty. I don't play Call of Duty, but I was playing Call of Duty, but now I want to play something else, and I just can do it because there's nothing holding itself over me. On the PlayStation, God of War had a vicious grip. And I was in a situation where, the middle of that game has moments that drag. And I was in moments that drag. And I did not want to play them. But it meant I couldn't touch the PlayStation 5. Because I also didn't want to take it out of quick save, like quick resume. And go and play something else. JT, give me some soothing tones just for a moment. Oh, it's even worse than it was. Right, JT, you can't fix this. I can. I can. And while we're doing that... while I'm doing that, blah, 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 blah. I know this is a pain. I'm going to move this across. And I'm going to press this button. JT, say something now?
Saying some more words.
Yeah, so now we are smooth as you can hope to be. We can see JT again. Let me just make sure that the beloved audience can also hear you, because... things are complicated. I think they can. Chat, can you hear JT now?
Yep, saying some more words. And actually, I can respond to Isla that you know me with my expressionist dance. And somebody stop me at this point. This is inevitably going to happen.
Okay, if you're in chat right now, please pretend that you cannot hear JT, and we'll move straight into the interpretive dance section of the show.
I think even if they could, it's happening regardless. Isla's not going to let us go.
Perfect. So... now that I'm back with it, I've got a few little... I've even got some bonus rounds to the questions today, by the way. So, JT, you're not allowed to answer these. We've got festive background that I think is relatively easy. I think some of you will probably be able to name this game through the course of this episode. We've got an OST that's absolutely bonkers. I've got no idea. I don't think any of you will get that unless some of JT's friends turn up to watch, in which case maybe. But it's a little obscure. But we've also got a bonus 3 points available. Okay, we're going to get back to games in a second, but I've been looking forward to reading you this. So I've got a quote from someone, a gaming celebrity, we shall say, talking about what got them into gaming. And what I want from you is the gaming celebrity, the name of the game, and the platform. So here's the quote for you. Not going to do the voice, it'll give it away too much. So, the moment I got into gaming is the moment I first laid my eyes on a gaming machine. To this day, I don't know what the console was called. It had a wooden veneer, and the game had you control a man crossing a pond over giant leaves. That's your clue. Celebrity console game. A man crossing a pond over giant leaves. I got it very quickly, I must say, because I'm quite proud of myself on that one. But let's see if it is as obvious as I thought that it was. JT, now that you're back and you have a voice, what have you been playing this week?
Well, great question. So I could not have a greater spectrum right now of the two games I've been playing this week. So I just boxed off the Gunk, which is an indie game on Game Pass that I've been meaning to play for ages. And it's very, very low stakes. I kind of wanted it because I just finished the Modern Warfare 2 campaign. I was looking for something that was perhaps a little bit more slower paced, and it was, it's not going to be winning any awards for originality, but it had a really sort of chilled vibe to it that I really appreciated, and actually reminded me a little bit of Beyond Good and Evil, one of my favorite games of all time. So I played that, and then when I finished that, I did that in about a day. I wrapped up the Gunk and started playing the Callisto Protocol for the first time, which could not be further removed from, you can see from the visuals here, could not be any more different. And as a huge Dead Space fan, I'm loving it. It's exactly what I wanted from that game. I think the only thing missing would be some kind of campaign co-op. But yeah, that's been my spectrum of gaming this week. It could not be more far removed from each other. But yeah. That's been my week.
They're both third-person adventures. It's like basically the same game. I played the Gun a while back. The trailer's got volume. No, it hasn't.
Slightly worryingly, you have gone silent.
I have gone silent. All the excitement that we have. So let me have a little look. I'm still
I don't know if I
out on the stream. No, you're still there. The trailer shouldn't have volume right now. Fuck, it does. My bad. So, what? Oh, do you know what, Isla? That wasn't the trailer volume. That was the PlayStation's volume.
Something's happened on my end, but I can't hear you now, Asa.
So, JT, let me think. So, the audience can hear us. I can hear you. I need to get rid of that little trailer that's just ended. Never work with children and animals. You can't hear me, so I can just say things like that, and it's fine.
I can hear you if I unmute the stream, but obviously then I'm behind.
Yeah, that's no good. That's no good, JT. So you wait there, and I will do more tinkering. Don't leave though, because fucking sound bollocks. Again, I see what's happening, and it shouldn't be. Weird noises. So, can you still hear me? You can. JT, you'll be able to hear in a moment. Celebrity might have been a bit of an exaggeration. The game is not Pitfall. What you heard then actually was the PlayStation 5 in the background. I forgot to mute it, so I don't know what made it suddenly kick in and start making noises. It should have been doing that all along. Whatever it is probably the reason that JT can't hear me now. I use a little bit of software called Voice Meter to route sound across various places. And every now and again, this happens and it dies. So, come on, it won't let me restart it for the moment. As soon as it does, everything will be back and working and functional. The celebrity was an exaggeration, but counts as a celebrity. This person has had, they've made it to the title of other people's gaming podcasts, which is the criteria necessary to become a gaming celebrity. You know this person quite well. I know this person quite well. So, like I say, celebrity is an exaggeration, but I think you can get it. JT, don't worry, you're nearly there. Bastard software PC. But what I was really hoping was that someone will be able to get the game. You're a man that crosses a pond on giant leaves. I am obviously going through some minor troubleshooting at the same time as we try and do this show, so bear with me if I'm a bit spacey and I can't quite read your comments as we go, but I will definitely get to them because they are the best things about it, and I want to know all about exactly. Isla has guessed the game from that wonderful description. Yes, of course, the man crossing the pond. Yes, Peter, the man crossing the pond on the lily pads is of course Frogger. Because why else would it be? JT, interpretive dance. He can't hear me, but he'll get this on the YouTube feed in like...
Just checking my audio just to see if I come through at all. So yeah, I can hear myself on stream, and I can hear Acer before, but I can't hear
the
from StreamYard.
How about now? You can hear JT. I can't hear JT. What is even going on? You hear me again? Fuck you, voice meter shitty software piece of rubbish. I'm so mad at their free software that won't start right now.
It's to make for a great stream that we're both on but can't hear each other.
Bonds is old enough for Frogger. I think I don't think Gaz is old enough for Frogger, but he's played it, so fuck you, voice meter. Start software, start. So who can we hear now? You can hear both. I can't hear JT, so that doesn't entirely work for me. But if you can, I don't believe that you can. There's no way that you can hear him. It doesn't make any sense. Can't type playing Halo. So there's a game that someone's playing. Painful Discourse is playing Halo. Oh, you can hear him. Wow. JT, make some more noises.
Here's some more noises, because I can hear you through the stream, but not through StreamYard.
Right. Right. So, yeah, both are good, Peter. I'm glad that you can hear everybody. I cannot hear JT right now, so that is conversationally tricky. I can hear a horrible noise. Like old times, I don't. This is bizarre. I blame the Xbox app that shouldn't be open. So.
Off our backs and polluting up our land. It's funny how your money got you so out of touch, man. You sell us all out for half a hollow buck. Self-made man, you don't have to pretend. Your whole life is pay to win, pay to win. Your whole life is pay to win, pay to win. Pay to win. Your whole life is pay to win, pay to win.
I can hear things. JT, make noises.
Oh wait, yeah, I can hear you now through this.
Right, so I'm sorry that the PlayStation keeps on blasting everybody with sound as well. Hopefully that's the end of that. I can hear JT, JT can hear me. Nobody needs to hear this weird music in the background. What have you done, JT? JT chose the OST.
I just showed up.
Technical difficulties are definitely not JT's fault. Hopefully it's smooth sailing from here. So let's get back to games. The Gunk. I played when it came out for maybe a couple of hours. I really didn't like it. Didn't like the characters, didn't like the puzzles, didn't like the world very much. So I threw it in the bin. And by threw it in the bin, I mean I uninstalled it because obviously I was playing it on Game Pass. It didn't cost me anything, so it was worth a little try. But you enjoyed it more than I did. What about everybody in chat? Have you played the Gunk? Did you play it through to the end? And yeah, carry on from there. Callisto Protocol. So JT, how far into it are you?
So I'm probably about, I'd say about 3 hours in. So I haven't really, I'm not massively into it yet, but so far I'm really digging it. It's exactly kind of what I was looking for from a sort of Dead Space like game. I think
well, that's not the name of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not what we're looking for. That's a different channel. Yeah, no, I've only a few hours in, but really enjoying it. I think I was very much in the market for like a linear single player game that's not an open world experience. I really wanted something very directed, and that definitely ticked that box. I understand also where you were coming from with the gunk as well. I can understand that, you know, the character, you know, it's fairly sort of unpolished in a sense.
It is a small studio that made it, so I can forgive the lack of polish, but...
Yeah. I think it just, there was something about it, I just found just the world design that I really appreciated, and the actual mechanics of it too, I thought I really liked. It was very, very simple, very short, but it was just exactly the kind of indie I think I was looking for at that time. I may have been a bit more critical of it if I'd come off the back of, say, playing something like Hades, or Somerville, or Pentiment, or something like that, which has a much sort of more...
These are recent games as well. This blows out the conversation a little, because we can talk about Somerville and Pentiment, two games that are fairly new that I haven't played. I did just remember another one that I have been playing as well, though, so I'm gonna interject with one of my own. Again, all of these questions are always open for everyone here in chat, so if you have played the Callisto Protocol, it's had quite mixed feedback, because some people really don't like the combat in there. I haven't played it myself, so I don't know. Some people get used to the combat and say that actually it enhances the game, and it's quite tense and plays out well once you're used to it, and other people just don't get used to it and hate it altogether. So if you have played the Callisto Protocol, give some feedback on what you make of it. The game that I'm going to interject though... Go on, JT. No, take it. Tell us about the combat.
All I was going to say was I can understand that there's definitely a learning curve to it, because it's not like a dodge button. It's like you're holding the stick in a direction away from where you're fighting, and then it not auto dodges, but you have to, like, if a character does like multiple attacks, you can't just keep holding one direction to keep dodging. You have to alternate, and you have to block, and there is a lot of positioning involved with it. So I think the learning curve's quite steep. But once it clicks, if it clicks for you, I think it is really satisfying, and that definitely happened for me quite early, which potentially has helped my perception of it, because early on I was really into it and really digging it, because it kind of fell into place. So, but I can understand that. I think that could be off-putting.
I think you've touched on something that's quite important to people's enjoyment of that game there in general, is that it is trying to emphasize positioning in your play. A lot of people complain about it being really difficult to tackle groups of enemies, and you're very much supposed to get in the middle of a group of enemies. So, issue of their own creation when perhaps approaching the situation with the dreaded stealth that we all hate so much. Everybody hates stealth, not just me. It's universal. Everybody hates stealth. Joe has said something in chat that I've got to pick up on, because I'm really curious about this. So Joe's playing Halo Infinite for the Santa hat. So I need to know two things, Joe. I need to know what's involved in getting this Santa hat, and are you going to use it beyond Christmas? Are you going to be running around as a festive Spartan in July? Those are my questions for you, Joe. I want to talk about those other...
Wait, Asa, hold on. Wait, you've disappeared. Yeah, you're not on stream or on StreamYard in my ears.
So, I'm back now, for some of you at least, not necessarily for JT. JT, can you hear me? Joe is going to wear the Santa hat all year round, so that's... I mean, if you're going to put the effort in to get it, what is the effort to get it? 10 challenges. So how many challenges can you get through in a day? Is it still like it was at launch, where they kind of dry out? I will get JT back on in just a moment, so... In fact, you might be able to hear him now if he says anything, but I don't think he can hear me, so that's a minor difficulty. Took you 2 hours. Oh, that's not a huge amount of effort for a hat you can wear all year round. Task manager.
Catch me if you can. The chase is all part of the plan. Won't you please turn down the lights? This is only for your eyes. Catch me if you can. Before you miss your only chance.
Just going to throw this out there. Can you hear me? Yeah, and I can't hear you, Asa, either on StreamYard or on stream.
Hold me now. Put me in your cage of love. Show me how
Oh, high stakes. So
I can still try.
So to address what Peter, you were saying about how haven't managed to justify buying it, although I like the look of it, as Game Pass made me tight. I don't think it has. I think it's just opened up options for people, right? They may have been harder to justify certain like indie games or new releases. Being able to keep on top of games when they're all 60, 70 quid is tricky. And Game Pass has just offered a viable alternative to that. I think, given maybe also Callisto's slightly mixed review response, that may have caused you to take a minute. I'd say go with your gut. If you like the look of it, and you're willing to sort of like put in that time just to kind of feel out the combat, I think if you're a fan of Dead Space, I think you will really, really enjoy it. So definitely worth a look. And it is helpfully slightly more sensibly priced than, say, a lot of other full price releases. I mean, I got the PS5 edition, I think, for 45 quid on Amazon. That was day one as a disc, which was pretty good. So, JT, tell us a story. Well, there was a time that I was invited onto Q&A, sir, and suddenly what happened was I was Asa all of a sudden. Nobody knows me. Nobody even asked for this, but this, lo and behold, was what happened. So please be excited. And I don't know what voice this is. This feels like an exercise in improvisation. I'm getting slowly drunker the more I speak. Time to wrap this up. You're welcome. Oh no, you're saying cheers for the Callisto thing, not my utter ramblings of drivel, which makes sense. This OST is funky, because I know what it is. I recommended it. So, a quick browse of my like tweets or my Xbox achievements would definitely give it away. But yeah, that's that. So what else have you all been playing? I think that's the key thing. Asa and I have talked about a couple of our sort of recent gems from the last week or so. What else have you guys been up to? What's been going on? What have you been playing? I feel like I haven't played very much single player stuff this year generally. My multiplayer gaming's been I've been really on it, but single player not so much. So yeah, just throw it up there. What have you guys been playing? Besides getting Halo Infinite Santa hats. Now, okay, power washing simulator. I've heard it's like an OCD wet dream. Like it's the greatest. Is this true? Is it genuinely really satisfying to play, or is it a bit irritating? Is it genuinely like, oh, this is going to tick a box for me. This is going to feel really satisfying. Good mix there, Isla, as well. Fire Emblem, Pokemon, and Minecraft. That is a real spectrum. And Somerville. So Somerville. This is one that's been on my list for a long time. It's on my Game Pass backlog. I know that, again, a bit like Callisto, the reviews are a bit mixed. I just always loved the look of it. The trailers always showed so well. So, yeah, I'm very much that. Probably after Callisto, I think Somerville's going to be next on the list. Or, as Peter, as you just mentioned, High on Life has been getting like insane player responses, and that whole, I keep seeing that tweet of like the Metacritic review score versus the user score, so different. And I now hear music. So is that an Acer?
I hear too many things now. So, yes, hopefully, I think it looks like everyone can hear me. JT can hear me, you can hear me. Do you know what's really nuts about this?
Yeah, there we go.
So JT can hear me, that's good. What's completely mad about this, though, is that it's nothing to do with JT being here. It's nothing to do with the fact that there's two of us. Cross-talk. Oh, no. Is it okay or is it not? JT, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I think that might have just been me accidentally talking over you. Sorry.
No, that's all good. That's all good. It's got nothing to do with... It's not JT's fault. It's not through all of the efforts that I've gone to set up this presentation for you today. The Go XLR that I use for sound just keeps turning itself off momentarily. Hopefully it'll be alright now. I've unplugged it, put it back in, I've restarted its software. And we will find out. We will find out. But for now, though, so JT, you just told everyone a story. Please now recount that story for me. No, don't do that. But where are we? What have we been talking about?
Again, I think I covered like 5 games. I don't know where
I love games.
Please look forward to watching back your VOD later. You'll be able to enjoy it. But I took over the show and had to basically thank myself for improvising.
Do you know, I do appreciate that you took that and ran with it for a while. I'm very sorry for everyone that is here and has had to sit through like on and off problems for the duration of the stream so far. Fingers crossed we're here and it's going to be good for the rest of it. Peter Morland, it is a Christmas shirt. These are Christmas trees and very festive indeed. It is a Christmas background. No one's named it yet, which is still a surprise to me. There are not many games that are this Christmassy. Money in the meter, a lot of money has gone into that damn meter. It is not getting any more. Sauron Grant, welcome along as well. Yeah, I still haven't seen enough of you tell me what games you are playing though. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, that's one I didn't expect. God Emperor Sofa King is quite the name.
We had a good exchange actually during my during the intermission, covering everything from like Power Washing Simulator through to Isla's triple threat of Fire Emblem, Pokemon Violet, and Minecraft. Peter mentioned Somerville, which is on my list as well, which I haven't got to yet. I think I was saying once Callisto's wrapped up, I think that'll be my next indie game. But I was actually just as you pop back into life, I was mentioning High on Life, which who was that brought that up? That was Peter again, and how it's almost like, you know, what? First of all, the Metacritic and user score being such a discrepancy, I think is so fascinating. You know, with critics responding sort of very lukewarm, whereas the general sentiment seems very positive from just the average human. It's almost a bit like Pentiment, where it really wasn't on my radar, and then suddenly everyone was saying how brilliant it was. I feel like I can't ignore either High on Life or Pentiment for that reason, because it just seems to be that despite the discrepancy in review, you know, critical response and what people are thinking, just seems to be that it's generating conversation.
Pentiment possibly went the opposite way to High on Life, in that a lot of critics really did like it, and a lot of people that tried it really didn't. High on Life got a pretty terrible critical reception, and most people playing it seem to love it, partly because they know what they're getting into, but a lot of people seem to love it. JT, I didn't catch whether you like it. Have you played High on Life?
No, I haven't, and I'm thinking it'll either be Somerville or High on Life will be kind of my next kind of indie games. I'm going to hopefully try and box off Callisto before Christmas, and then have that sort of couple of sort of back-to-back indies going into the end of the year.
Do you enjoy the Rick and Morty line of humour?
Yeah, I do, yeah, and actually I think as subjective as humour so obviously is, I think there aren't actually many games that really push comedy. Really, when you think about it, it's quite a small subset of titles. Yeah, you might have some quippy lines here and there in some titles, but games that really shoot for like, oh, we want you to laugh at jokes, I don't think is something that you really see a lot. And for that reason, I kind of feel like it deserves its 15 minutes in the limelight.
So High on Life,
to try it.
It's packed. If you like that sense of humour, I haven't played it. I've played the opening I've probably played it for 5 hours, but 4.5 hours of that was sitting in front of the TVs. It's just packed with humour everywhere. The only thing that I will say about that game is it's definitely going to be available in virtual reality. Like, you can see it from everything in there, and it will be better in virtual reality. So I'm really torn on whether I should give it a playthrough, because it is a good game. It's very evidently a good and funny game. Or if I should wait and play it the way I want to.
Are you basing that on VR on the fact that did these guys also make? Was it Trover Save the Universe?
They've made more than one thing, yes. Trovo Save the Universe was their most recent. They made Accounting Plus as well. So they are a VR studio first and foremost, which is why I get upset when I see people say, Xbox should acquire Squanch games because I like this. And I'm like, fuck you, Xbox shouldn't be allowed to acquire anyone that makes virtual reality games. They should, like anyone else is fine, get who you want, but not the VR studios. High on Life will come to VR either officially, and I'd be honestly quite surprised if it doesn't have an official VR version when it goes to other platforms. But if it doesn't, it runs on the Unreal Engine, and there is a very dedicated modding community that are doing very good things with Unreal Engine, so it'll be as good as native on the PC anyway. So for me, I could definitely wait and play it in VR and have more fun.
Yeah, nice.
Or I could play it now and laugh at the jokes, right?
Well, I mean, is it something a bit like you've done with Skyrim, where you played that in a traditional sense and have now kind of given it a new lease of life in VR? Is there a version of that could apply to High on Life?
It depends how well the game holds up beyond its sense of humour, because it would be a case of watching the same jokes again.
Yeah.
God Emperor Sofa King, that's not ironic. I know Bethesda. Bethesda make my favourite virtual reality games. And they made a bunch of them. And Ninja Theory made VR games. And In Exile made VR games. And Microsoft shouldn't be allowed to acquire anyone until they get me my Forza in virtual reality. Bastards.
This is it. You're planting the flag now, drawing a line in the sand. Come on, Microsoft.
Imagine if, like, any of them, if I'd written, like, we can talk about that at some point if you want, but if I'd written to any of these agencies to be like, yeah, look at how this impacts the virtual reality industry. Deal off. Microsoft are bastards. They ruin everything. Nobody cares about VR apart from me. I appreciate that, really. But I do care passionately, so I'm going to stomp my feet around and throw a little hissy fit. JT and everyone in chat, we mentioned there a couple of games where there's quite a distance between user reception and critic reception. Can you think of any other good examples in recent history where reviewers and real people just seem to have a complete difference of opinion?
Yes, Rumbleverse. That's one that really sticks out in my mind, because that dropped at a very similar time as Multiverses, and I feel like that they're both polar opposites of each other in the sense that Multiverses reviewed very well, but I don't know if it's had like I don't see it being talked about much. I don't know what its streaming is like right now, or whether what it's ranking in terms of like most played. Whereas Rumbleverse was the flip; it didn't review well at all. It was fairly sort of dismissed, but consistently, I see it, really positive sentiment, and that very much they're kind of in polar opposite to each other. So yeah, Rumbleverse really stuck out for me, and I'm definitely someone that loved that game. That's definitely up there for me.
I have not known. I mean, you also liked Knockout City as well, so you have like taste in multiplayer games that doesn't necessarily align with anybody else on the planet. It must do, because they're multiplayer games. There must be at least one other person playing these for you to enjoy them.
Yeah, no, it's me. It's me with a bunch of bots. That's how I play those games.
Rumbleverse, though, like, you're right about Multiverses. When it came out, there was quite there was a critical buzz, and there was a flash of like influencers and social media talking about it a lot, and it fell off a cliff. I'm included in that. I played it for like a couple of weeks, quite a lot, thinking, oh, this could be a game I keep playing and play a chunk of, and then suddenly I just forgot that it existed. Rumbleverse never really clued that it did exist. So have you played it recently?
Yeah, I've played it consistently since launch, and seen since its second season update, which was delayed. Much better matchmaking times. I think it's had that sort of, not quite the Rainbow Six Siege, because that's a premium game and had a much longer tail to it, but it's had a similar sort of like post-launch uptick as opposed to most games of that type that then typically drop off, as you'd expect. I think it's had, just in terms of like and I can see it again in the, when it launched, you have to wait sometimes a minute or a minute and a half to get into a game, and now it's like all of about 10 seconds. So that's just pure player count.
How does it play out? Like, I can see the trailer, I can see the gameplay, but how does combat against other players play out in Rumbleverse? What do you press? How do you mush them and stop them from mushing you?
Yeah, it's closer to wrestling than anything else. Like, it's got more of there's no guns, there's no ranged combat in that sense. You can pick up items and throw them at people, but it's very much a brawler, and it's all about timing your attacks by reading your opponent, and eventually kind of devolves into this sort of like big melee towards the end, which is great fun. and it's very slapstick, deliberately so. It does not take itself seriously at all. And I think maybe that came at just the right time for me as well. I do think a lot of the games I've connected with, games like Knockout City, which I know aren't like massively popular, but popular enough to justify ongoing updates. And Knockout City is in its 8th season right now. I find that sometimes the timing of when some of these multiplayer games arrive is just right for me. And then whether or not it's connected with the wider critical audience, it's almost like immaterial at this point, because it just ended up being a winner for those reasons, because it felt very skill based and quite well balanced too. So is this a recommendation? Should me and everyone here jump on Rumbleverse at some point? Yes, it's free to play, low stakes, got nice cross-play integration, so very easy to jump on between PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. And yes, I think you absolutely should. In fact, I would go so far. I'm putting it into my Game of the Year nominations for this year, into my big list. And it's my personal selection, so I realise that's not going to be reflective of the wider industry, but I would definitely recommend that, and I would even go so far as to pitch you a stream where you and I have a slapstick.
Well, we're always looking for things to stream, and they're always funny to me. I very rarely can stand to watch myself playing games, but the streams that we did together on Halo, editing that like little highlights video together was like good memories. That's funny. This is laugh out loud funny stuff. So
yeah. Sure.
Can Rumbleverse do it? I don't know. Apex Legends was a little bit of a travesty.
But don't you think Apex was a travesty because of our general ineptitude? Us just not being able to do anything successfully. Whereas actually, I think Rumbleverse will have a slightly more kind of that almost kind of Laurel and Hardy slapstick vibe to it. I think that would be very entertaining to show, but also us, just because there's quote-unquote friendly fire in it, but you can't damage each other. You could just accidentally slap each other around, and that's very funny in the heat of a moment where you've timed a really good attack, and then your teammate just comes along and backfists you. So there's a bit of that, that I think would be quite amusing on a stream for sure.
Sauron Grant, which standalone virtual reality would Microsoft back if they moved studios into VR? They would not back a standalone VR. My wish for Microsoft is that they would support PC VR within the games that they're already releasing on PC, staying more true to their word, where they've always said that they're willing to see how PC VR does or doesn't flourish. So, is it Dead Rising? The game in the background is most definitely a Dead Rising game, yes. The one that's set at Christmas. So you have to give me the number as well. More strictly speaking, it is set around Black Friday, I think, but there's Christmas decorations everywhere. I've never played this either, apart from today when I played it for long enough to get this clip for the background, which turned out to be a pretty long time. Hours and hours of effort to put this festive stream together, only for hardware to fail and ruin it for everybody. But hopefully not entirely. We're here now. We're back. We're running smooth. Sea of Thieves is the example that always springs to mind for me when we're talking about a game that has a massive discrepancy between user reception and critical reception. Because it launched to basically critical humiliation. It was getting 4s and 5s, and it managed to find an audience of about 25 million people or something. And part of that is through layers and development that they added to the game post-launch, but fundamentally it remained pretty much the same game to me. And I think the critics just missed entirely what was happening there.
Yeah, and so much of that was, I think affected by how open they were in their alpha and beta stages, where the game was quite bare bones. There wasn't really any consistent story content. It was missing a lot of the things that you would need to maintain that engagement and keep people hooked. And that definitely would have skewed the review scores down when it launched, because it's like when it finally dropped, it wasn't really much different from its alpha, particularly. It just didn't have the content there that it needed, I think, to maintain that interest. So that definitely had an impact for sure. And like you say, over time they've addressed that constantly. That's how you support a live service game. Take notes, 343, because Halo Infinite, that's not the one.
What are you talking about? Joe's playing it just today-ish to get a Santa hat.
He's getting his hat, and what you just said then is everything that's wrong with that. It's everything that's wrong with the way they're handling their their post-launch support.
Music has been turned down for those of you that had it, drowning things out a little. I cannot promise that the PlayStation... Oh, do you know what? The reason that the PlayStation kept randomly blasting you was because the stupid Go XLR kept restarting. Which reminds me of the game I was going to talk about earlier, because I glossed over games that I've been playing myself in the heat of technical difficulties. Has anyone ever heard, and this is a weird one, of Dragon's Crown Pro? Maybe, I can't remember what the suffix is. They possibly remade or remastered it on the PlayStation 4. It was like £3 or £4 on the PlayStation Store, and it had reasonably good reviews despite looking very weird. And the reason that it looked very weird is the very exaggerated boobs. Basically, I'm gonna see if I can bring it up. PlayStation has been making all kinds of noises, so it should work. No, it's
Have you got that queued up?
I've got it queued up. It's ready to go. So the dwarf on screen right now is not the source of the boobs, but you will very quickly see. Look at these characters that are following me around.
Source of steroids.
So let's see if I can blow them up. And this is actually not a terrible game. So it's art style wise, it looks kind of like Astro Ascending, but it's not. It's more of a button mashy 2D side scrolly thing. I can't remember how to run. I want to show you someone. Just while we're on the subject of the weirdness. This is the shopkeeper. She sells things and says, "Welcome to my shop," and fits the vibe of the game.
Some potent baps.
Yeah, well, yeah, but look at the characters that are following me around, who are potentially playable characters. Look at the way they move. So, Dragon's Crown, and actually, though, so as you play through it, it's got like a narrator telling the story as you go. So each time you enter a new dungeon or something, they give you a little description. And the places that have been quite nicely varied, and the combat is all right. So if you like a 2D brawler, it's well worth £3 or £4. Even if you just like obscure prestige, £3 or £4 will get you that.
Which, by the way, I mean, if every day someone says something that could be the name of an obscure indie band, that obscure prestige, that is definitely up there. For sure.
I'm sorry if you were enjoying that, but it's gone now. If you want any more of it, you have to buy it for yourself.
That's what you're getting. You get limited on obscure prestige. Just scrolling back up through the chat when Peter we were talking about Sea of Thieves, about him saying, so I didn't particularly like it at launch, but still don't. But I am convinced it must be good, just not my game. I think that is a very fair assessment of that title. I have that feeling sometimes about Forza as well, that I can see that it's obviously been reviewed well, but often just doesn't quite connect for me. Yeah, Isla, you've earned, I'm just going back to chat now. Isla definitely has earned some points there, right? I think she's giving you the correct number.
She has given me the correct number. Yes, I'm also already on live chat, but I appreciate the reminder to switch it. Yes, the game in the background is Dead Rising 4. So Isla's got loads of points because she also got Frogger. Nobody has named that celebrity yet because I drastically overstated the status of this person. So I'm surprised that no one has guessed it though. And Peter got the Atari console.
Joe, your point about Halo being much better in the last 2 months, is that because of the Forge and campaign co-op updates? Has that been the thing that's turned it around for you?
Or one of those things in particular?
Yeah, had there been an element of that played into that shift in perception? Bonnie Ross was guarding the content. That's funny. That would be interesting to know, actually. What was the thing that you think has caused that shift in what people think of Halo Infinite? That's an interesting point of discussion, I think. And
for those that are playing it, running around in Halo, what are the highlights that you've seen in Forge? Because I look at Forge and I see the clips on YouTube and all the rest of it and Twitter, and there's some incredible looking maps and game modes going around. But it reminds me in that sense, so I can look at it and I can appreciate that's like a great tool set that 343 have built, and it's got a nice little community around it, doing things that are worthy of like a lot of respect and attention. But then I look back at Dreams on the PlayStation 4 as well, which was entirely a Forge mode. It didn't have like a game besides that in particular. It was essentially a light game engine on console for people to make and create things. And that also got some really impressive stuff shared around. But commercially, it was pretty much a flop. Like, it bombed quite badly. So it's a very hardcore community that like to make things, and I'm not sure how big the community is that actually consumes them and plays them. So if you are playing Halo Forge, tell me what the highlights are. Tell me if it really is making the game good, or if you'd rather play like a fully produced AAA experience somewhere else.
So one thing I don't get about what they've done with Infinite's post-launch is that given what they did with the Master Chief Collection, it can't be that hard for them to just shit out a bunch of classic maps and copy them over to Infinite, because there's none of them in there. And I think that's a great loss, that they've got this huge library of maps that they've recently remastered. It can't surely be that difficult to get them ported into Infinite, just to plug the gap between their newer stuff. Just very strange. The whole thing has been very odd for me.
Now you've got a situation where most of those maps probably do exist via the community, but don't necessarily have people congregating around them. Sure. Because they haven't been released in that official capacity. But
yeah, Peter's saying they deleted Halo off the box today. Sadly, just can't be impressed by it. And I totally get that. I'm pretty close to a hard Brexit on it myself, and I'm a staunch lover of Halo. So yeah, I completely get that, dude. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Joe. There we go. So rotating weekly playlist that's actually fun. Yeah, that was a real sticking point for me when I looked at the playlist. It just didn't change for about 6 months, and that's a really good observation. Nice one on that. Community browser, yeah, that's helpful. But that one, I feel like that's a real, much like online co-op. I'm like, why the hell wasn't that in there from day one? That's just maddening to me. And D-Sync seems better. Oh, okay, that's cool. That's good to hear. I'm glad, because that, it's a series that has such a great pedigree, and obviously it's one of Xbox's, or is it anymore one of their flagship titles? That's I think a fair question. Do you think that, Asa? Do you think Halo Infinite has irreparably damaged it? When
you have no other games to replace it, it gets to retain ownership of that flag.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. If replacement is Pentiment, then yeah, I guess that, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
It's one of those things though, like the quest to create a mascot is usually folly anyway. So generally, Master Chief and Xbox have dovetailed through history, and he's become a mascot for that platform. But when a platform holder goes out, or a publisher or a developer or anyone else goes out and says, I want this character to be iconic, they're going to be a mascot now, then you end up with Crash Bandicoot, and nobody likes him. Nobody likes him because he's shit.
Someone get my wife down here, because she will fight you bare knuckle brawl to defend Crash, baby. AJH just came in saying, Halo is fundamentally solid. Problem is they semi-drop the ball with content. I completely agree with that. I think that's fairly reasonable. I think that the general populace will be able to say that, their post-launch support has been fairly dismal. The campaign was lackluster, and there was no exploration to it. Everything was spoon-fed to you. I still haven't played the campaign because I was waiting for co-op. And my concern now is it's been so long, it's been delayed so much, that there's a real possibility I may never get to it. And I say this again,
you like Halo too much.
Well, I figured if I was ever going to do it, it'd be a stream. It'd be like a Halo stream with you and I. They remade the pit from Halo 3 last week, for example, and made it the featured map for the week on the rotating playlist. So was that, when they say they remade the pit, was that a from the ground up remake, as in it was a new map, essentially, or was that made in Forge? Because as much as it's nice for them to use their own tech to bump up the rotation of maps, I would prefer them to have made something truly bespoke, I think, rather than just... I always think those Forge maps never quite hit the spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like 343 using the Forge tools, which is the blend between those answers. I think they are keen to do that, though.
Perhaps as a way of selling it as a concept for people too.
I think arguably, though, like the fact that they've pulled it into the like the central rotation and spotlighted it in that way, in a sense, like I was saying earlier, you get really good remakes of all of these maps, and the problem is that no community congregates around them because they're just off in like some browser list somewhere. But if you've got the pit being remade, be it by 343, be it by Ted from Barnsley, if they're spotlighting it like that and getting the community in there together, then that's a successful endeavor, hopefully, for keeping that game entertaining. Yeah,
I suppose it's more a case of like, I don't want to begrudge it because it's nice to see them actually leveraging the tools that they've made and put out there. And if they're going to use them themselves to help bump up their content, I can't in one breath say like, oh, their post-launch has been shit, and then when they do actually do something with it, I go, it's fucking terrible. That seems a bit hypocritical. But at the same time, I think, well, like Painful Discourse mentioned about how old maps might need a makeover because of the different movement. I don't know. Perhaps if it was in the ranked and competitive stuff, I think maybe. But a lot of those old, I don't feel like you need to do anything with like Blood Gulch or Valhalla to get those big team maps into the game. Really?
AJH has said something significant there. So for me, yeah, you're absolutely right that Halo launching shy of content is one thing. Launching as a free-to-play live service game and not having a live service in an industry that has mastered live service games was like disaster, but also quite like it's hard to fathom how Microsoft of all people can spend that amount of time preparing, flunk the launch and flunk the subsequent year before finally getting like Forge ready and all the rest of it. It's a live service game. Yeah. Like Respawn went to EA and delivered Apex Legends and supported it fully. Epic have redefined what a live service game can be, for better or worse, with the amount of like content and topical things that they flood into Fortnite. But there are so many good examples. Like you talking about Rumbleverse, I bet that's had more content than Halo.
It has easily. It's only on its second season. It's almost caught up with Halo Infinite, since Halo Infinite technically is still in season 2 right now. So, it's a tricky situation for sure. And I think the answer to it is them leveraging things like Forge and bringing back old maps. I just wish it was happening faster. I think it would have. I think if these changes are great now, but a lot of the people that were on the fence have now jumped and won't necessarily be won over by a Forge map. I don't think.
The comment from AJH, I've still not read it there. I see it, it's there. It's just it's one line too many for me to absorb all at once. So I'm going to read it. So they monetized the living shit out of it, with the reasoning being we made it free to play. They'll let you get on, go and buy it. And, oh yeah, so AJH is like me. Never ask for free to play. Do not like the free to play monetization model. So there's no option to go and buy it. And that's badness, right? Okay. Halo being free to play and free to play games in general running alongside Game Pass. It's a weird position, right? For Microsoft to take their flagship IP and say Game Pass is going to kill this, like it's too high a barrier of entry for a multiplayer game. So we're going to take our flagship title and we're going to put part of it in Game Pass, but the other part, we don't want that barrier. We want it outside of that service as a proper free-to-play game.
Yeah, which I suppose is odd in many ways, because the Game Pass was the lower barrier of entry. They could have kept the campaign and multiplayer package as a premium thing, and then said, but for $9.99 a month, here's your Halo Infinite. I don't know whether they needed to make the multiplayer free-to-play. And especially if, it's all 2020 hindsight, I guess, but given the way that how poorly it's been supported post-launch, I don't think they were built for it. And so there's, it's tough. It's a tough one. It's all 2020 hindsight.
It is, but also like it's hindsight, but it's also interesting to see in terms of looking forwards, because that is the strange position that Game Pass is in, where you hear a lot of talk about whether or not it can support AAA games and like the Sony first party games. Could they go in a subscription service? Can it work for that tier of game? And all of the big publishers, for whatever selfish reasons, are pretty much saying like, we make too much money on our big games. We don't really want to put them on a subscription service. And all of those people, when things scale up, they'll change their minds. Of course they will. When there's enough money, it can support bigger and better games. But free to play games, the whole drive, the industry has been driving towards free to play for a long time, particularly in the multiplayer space. And the whole deal with free to play games is you do not want any barrier to entry. And that's why you don't need Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus to play the likes of Fortnite. So it puts Game Pass in a strange situation next to other service games. Like, I don't know. I don't really have a thing to latch onto there and push it forwards, but I don't know. Any thoughts on that? What's the future of the next big free-to-play game? Is Game Pass good for it or bad for it?
Yeah, I don't know if... Well, like you say, if they've already removed the barrier to entry by, not requiring Gold or PlayStation Plus, it's sort of then you then go, but doesn't need to be Game Pass then. It doesn't need to be there. The idea of a free-to-play game launching into a premium subscription service just seems so odd to me. Just seems like oxymoronic. So I think it truthfully, and again, with the benefit of hindsight, they should have kept it a premium product, put it into Game Pass, and I think then people's expectations would have been tempered for what they expected post-launch. But then, historically, you look back at Halo 3, Halo 4, the premium map packs and stuff that they released for those games were fantastic and happened regularly. And I'd happily spend money to get like a pack of 4 maps. Like I used to buy all the Call of Duty DLC back in the day. And
maps are a difficult one though, like because maps were specifically moved away from because they did split the community that was there. So map packs is for me the biggest argument in favor of cosmetics.
Sure, yeah, that's what you're gonna. If that's what you're gonna monetize, because then you can have those cosmetics irrespective of whether everyone else has bought them or not, right? It doesn't split the player base. I think so long as you sort of like, if you looked at it perhaps with a sort of like a two-pronged approach, that you had Forge maps and you had stuff being added for free, and then you had a premium tier for those hardcore Halo players that were really then wanting to support that and get on board. That could potentially be a way to have their cake and eat it too. But also, like you say, if community becomes the main thrust of their approach, and Game Pass is meant to, we've seen it time and again, haven't we? The engagement numbers, the player numbers we're getting because of Game Pass, if that's their focus, then no, it wouldn't make sense to monetize map packs. And it would be far more sensible, I think, to just have a premium product and have it launch into Game Pass. It's tough. It's a really tough thing for them to deal with. And I don't know what comes next for Halo. Do they now, because of the precedent they've set, do you think they now always have to have a free-to-play multiplayer?
Oh, goodness, I hope not. That's not so much a Halo-specific question as an industry question as to whether free-to-play is going to remain this kind of dominant model. It's not a model that I'm a massive fan of in some... That's too broad a thing to say. In some cases, a free-to-play game with like fair monetization can be a wonderful thing. I don't actually begrudge. Do I begrudge Fortnite's monetization? I don't begrudge Fortnite's monetization at its core. I do begrudge certain things around the way that it manipulates my children.
I mean, my two, very much into Fortnite, and it's V-Bucks all the way. They thankfully haven't asked me to subscribe to the actual the monthly Fortnite thing. I don't know what it's called, but
Fortnite Crew.
That's it. I haven't had any conversations around that. They'll buy the battle pass and they'll buy certain skins that they want, but thankfully because I do think a separate game-specific subscription within a free-to-play title is getting into a bit almost like World of Warcraft, like paying a sub to play the game territory that I think is not great. It's not a great model that I'm a big fan of.
I almost like it.
By the way,
I almost like subscriptions. So I used to play massively multiplayer online games before World of Warcraft changed the way that these are monetized, where you subscribed and you got content over time. So this was before live service existed in the ways that it does now. Live service was a fair offering once upon a time to me. So I'd pay my £10 a month and I'd get a content patch and some story progression every month, and I was quite happy with that. For a game like Fortnite, if their subscription was like $9.99 a month and it included everything, I'd be very content with that. What I really hate is games that have these top-up meters where they have a consumable that will double your experience for the next hour or get you better loot for the next hour, and you're supposed to constantly top it up. And if you are not paying for that service, then you are wasting your own time, because that will be the most efficient way to get what you want. And that...
And massively disadvantaged in terms of your progression and the speed with which you're achieving that. That I agree with that. That's tough. And actually, I just, maybe because I don't have a background in massively multiplayer games, is that I have an inherent bias towards subscriptions for a single title. I just don't like that conceptually. I say that as someone that is subscribed to Game Pass, and I have Nintendo Switch Online, I have PlayStation Plus Extra, or Premium, sorry. So I like them as a concept, but for individual titles, that's never clicked for me.
So what upsets me about it though is where you get games that, like Elder Scrolls Online, started off as a subscription game. It came at a time where people weren't really interested in a subscription game, so they changed it to a free-to-play game and let you buy lots of things piecemeal. But they introduced a subscription option so that you could subscribe And the problem for me was that the subscription option, Elder Scrolls Online isn't unique in this. Like most games that offer microtransactions now also give you the option to subscribe in some capacity. But that subscription still doesn't get you a whole game. That subscription gets you like a certain amount of currency to spend in the bastard store. And it is still monetized and designed around microtransactions. So they still just don't feel good even when you subscribe to them, which is a shame because, like I say, some of my favorite games were subscription games before things changed in this direction. I was quite happy to pay for content in that capacity. At the same time, like when you talk about Call of Duty map packs and you get into that conversation, I can appreciate microtransactions as like potentially reasonable way to deliver content. And people making games, delivering live service content, need to make money on that or they will get moved on to another game. That's just the reality of it. So in terms of how they make that money, microtransactions aren't necessarily evil. They're just always implemented by greedy bastards and they become evil.
Yeah, exactly. It's that thing of like on paper it's like a half decent idea, but then how they're then chosen to be actioned can be, you know, that's the thing that makes it kind of a bit icky. And actually, when I think about map packs, those were released in an era where live service wasn't really a thing. You know, you weren't having like, they weren't really free to play games in any great mass market sense, you know. So I used to look at, say, a Halo map pack for Halo 3 as like an expansion pack for a game. And I take that kind of mindset to it where like maybe once every few months there'd be an opportunity to bump up the game. And I think because there wasn't an expectation of constant free content, I think it actually, well, there were map packs in games across Battlefield, Call of Duty, Halo for years. So it clearly was a business model that worked. It's just free to play, and doing live service was kind of an extension and a logical next step for that. So, and actually just interestingly, going back through some of these comments, Painful Discourse, AJH, you guys and Peter, you've been kind of back and forth, and there was a point you made earlier about the size of the teams that are working on these titles relative to the consistency of their output. So, you know, you Painful Discourse, you mentioned about how people forget how many people actually work on Fortnite and COD. You know, how big the Fortnite team is, and also how many developers are assigned to Call of Duty. You know, a fraction of that works on Halo, and AJH followed by saying, you know, they really need to buck up their dev numbers if they want to get into the live service space. And that is, again, that I would square that entirely at the Xbox first-party management, is that they didn't have a studio built with an infrastructure or simply staff members with enough bodies to pump out the content as fast as they needed to, because relative to those other titles, which Halo drew those comparisons for itself, I think, by making itself by separating its multiplayer into a free-to-play component, they invited those comparisons with other live service games because that's how they pitched it. And, you know, being this Infinite, I remember seeing one of the, it obviously sounds like PR guff, but it, you know, Infinite being described as a platform for Halo, not a single title. And when you're using words like platform and live service, that does generate an expectation, which is where I think the frustration has come from, is because it doesn't feel like, relative to those other titles that they themselves have drawn the comparison to, I don't think those expectations have been met.
That's fair. I don't think many people... Halo obviously does have its fans and it has people playing it and earning their Santa hatch to this day. Joe's gone now, Joe. I'm not having a dig at you when I say that. Like, I'm glad there are people playing Halo and enjoying it. But Halo Infinite launched with flaws on both sides in terms of the campaign, in terms of the content available there, in terms of the free-to-play multiplayer, in terms of all the marketing around it, in terms of launch content and post-launch support. There were many, many things that Microsoft need to do better. So let's hope they can't get a hold of Activision Blizzard and make them all inept as well, hey? I'm winding people up. I like to prod people. I still don't care if they get Activision Blizzard or not. But
no, of course. And that AJH, that's a really good point you've just made there about, you know, all you have to do is look at the name, Infinite. It was in the branding. They were talking about this as being a sort of ever-evolving platform since well before it launched and well before any delay. Yeah, the 10-year plan we'll be adding. Look out for the ray tracing update, you know, which then never came to Minecraft either. You know, so it was. I think it was sold as one thing and turned out that they couldn't quite deliver on that vision for what it was pitched as. I don't know what you do with Halo next. I think that's a really tough question to answer, and I don't know what the answer is really. for that.
That is true. I don't either. So they put themselves in a difficult position.
Here's a better one. But here's a better one to ask then. So in the chat, what would you guys like them to do with Halo? What comes next for you if you're playing it or not? If you're looking at this from afar, or you're in it and frustrated, or still enjoying it, whatever your response to Infinite has been, or currently is, or was, where do you want them to go next?
Do you want to see a rescue effort for Halo Infinite? Do you want to see a complete reboot? Do you want to see a proper sequel continuation of what they're doing here? All across the board, loads of questions there around Halo. And yeah, microtransactions in general, like, last thing that I'll say on that though is much as I don't mind microtransactions as a way for a live service game to be supported, problem for me is that they always go hand in hand with really sinister compulsion loops. And we had some good conversations about compulsion loops a couple of months ago, where essentially you never get a game that has microtransactions that isn't also trying to manipulate its user base to be online as often as possible. And as soon as I get a game that's like, here's your daily login rewards, don't let your streak break, you need to do this quest today and then another one tomorrow and another one the next day, don't go anywhere, don't play anything else, this is where you live now, stay here. And they do that because people staying there are like potential customers that may spend money on microtransactions. But those kind of, like, as soon as I feel that a game is being manipulative, it just sucks the fun away. And that's why I really don't get along with so many microtransaction fueled games. It's not necessarily the transactions themselves. If people want to buy hats and things, more power to them. But if that game is trying to ruin my time and control where I am and what I'm doing, it's not a fun game anymore. You've gone and ruined it.
Yeah, you've broken your streak. And then it sort of,
if there is a streak, I do not want it to get above one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Daily login reward. I'm not coming back.
Let me define my cadence of timing with that, rather than you telling me what I need to do for myself to stay relevant with this thing.
Make the game so fun that maybe I want to play it. Not maybe I have to play it.
Yeah. And I agree with you too, actually. I don't begrudge any game that puts in optional cosmetic microtransactions. I don't think there's actually inherently anything wrong with that, because they're entirely ignorable. I really don't like pay this amount of real money and you'll unlock everything. I genuinely don't like those. That's something I've always, like, I've seen it in Battlefield games, like, unlock all your kits. Spend £8 to unlock everything, because that I like that feeling of the grind and kind of working through stuff, and then it gives you a real a sense of progression. Anything like the skip ahead stuff, I really, really don't like.
I don't understand how Call of Duty gets away with it as a mechanic. I don't play Call of Duty because I can't understand who's on my team and who's not when they're all wearing camouflage. It's very difficult for me. But I look at these games and I see, like, the battle passes that get you new guns and upgrades for those guns that you can opt to pay for rather than earn if you want. And I'm like, you guys realize this is like pay to win the demon letters, right? You're not supposed to support this. Why are you all over this game?
Then like the whole, it's tied in with the discourse around Activision and the buyout, is that, you know, you look at what PlayStation offer Call of Duty players, and it's like, you know, bonus XP for your friends if you play on PlayStation, so you unlock stuff faster. And that's not through any paid thing. That's not even a microtransaction. That's just like a platform exclusive benefit that unlocks stuff faster, which is the same thing. And then when you then force people to pay for it, I just think is.
Here's a question for you then. Here's a question for you and everybody in chat as well. And we will come on to the answers that you gave about Halo there as well in just a second. But Activision Blizzard, right? Taking them to be like fairly sinister in the way that they monetize Call of Duty and Diablo. Not necessarily Diablo 4, fingers crossed, but the way that they monetize their games in general is, like, as far as I'm concerned, maximum greed. You've got World of Warcraft, you can buy it, you buy the expansions, you subscribe to it, you buy the cosmetics in the store, and you buy services like name changes and server transfers. Like, they're really, really, really greedy. Diablo Immortal set an awful precedent for what they might do with the Diablo series. And Call of Duty is essentially pay to win battle pass nonsense. So, taking them to be evil and assuming Microsoft successfully acquire them, do Microsoft make them better, worse, or indifferent? Like, if they go in, they say, hey, Mr. Phil Spencer, Diablo 4 is about to come out. We've got this wonderful system of gems where people can pay money to unlock better gems and make their character more powerful. Do you like it? Is Phil Spencer going to say, like, no, we're not bastards here? Or is it just going to be business as usual? Or is he going to say you could charge a little bit more on that if we have another socket in that bit of armor?
Yeah, I don't think he heightens it. I don't think he adds to the problem. But equally, I don't think they try and step in and take it away out of fear of being branded as like, oh, well, now Microsoft own us. They're now going to seize control and affect our design choices, even if those design choices are like monstrous monetization tactics. You know, I don't think they step in at all. In fact, I think putting those games onto Game Pass will only encourage them more to double down on that approach, because they'll be going, yeah, well, our game is in a sub, so we got to make our money back somehow. Forgetting, of course, they'll be owned first-party studios heavily being invested in, and those subscriptions make an absolute shit ton of money. So I think it will encourage them to continue on the path they're already on. I don't think we'll see an escalation, but I certainly don't think they'll step in and be like, no, that's immoral. I don't.
Well,
think
they did step in, and you can argue this. Maybe it isn't quite how it went down, but I get the impression that they did step in and say, no, Todd Howard, we're not going to release a game with 8 million bugs. Spend a little bit more time on this.
But then I suppose that's the question of quality control, and also they're then desperately trying to claw back some clout for their first party. Them being okay with waiting, because Christ, they waited through the whole Xbox One era. You know, they were fine holding off on that. So and maybe also they realize how much this is going to sell subs. If it is Game Pass, that is their whole mantra. Then they need that quality content that can rival the Sony first party, which they're not putting onto their PlayStation Plus equivalent. So I think that comes up down more to quality control than them intervening, and perhaps funding. Maybe Bethesda needs to shit out a buggy Fallout game because they were an independent studio and they had to pay for stuff, whereas they've got that Microsoft Office money, you know, that's funding them. So I want to. Oh, go on.
I'm gonna pick up these chat messages in a second, but I was playing Skyrim VR, my precious Skyrim VR the other day. And I got to one of the mainline quests where you need to go and speak to someone and get a boat over to Morrowind. And I'm like, hey, guy, take me on the boat to Morrowind. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that for you. And then he just sits down. And I go and talk to him again. And he's like, I'm not taking you to Morrowind. And I say, take me to Morrowind. I'm going to use the intimidation option. And I went through all of the options there. And I'm like, fine, I'm going to give you some gold. Take me to Morrowind. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it every time. Yeah, I'm going to do it. In the end, I stropped off and started walking across Skyrim to do something else. But the next time I played Skyrim, started the game, a whole load of weird shit happened, and it just teleported me back to the boat and took me on the quest. Starfield is not going to release without bugs. Skyrim still has bugs after 100 years.
there's no
wild bugs.
There is no narrative or version of this which suggests that the Starfield delay will make it a bug-free title. That thing is going to be bug-tastic, but it's going to be less bug-tastic than it would have been 12 months ago.
Yes, hopefully.
There's no doubt for that.
Or they'll just add fishing.
Yeah. Or the game just hard crashes. Like, the game runs great, but if it's going to bug out, it just evaporates on your console and just doesn't work. Just going back, it was interesting saying about how the recent community stream for Halo seems to have helped with some of the perception. The current roadmap is looking decent. KY came into chat mentioning how they wanted to see some campaign DLC. I think that would be a great way to convince people like myself to go, well, you know what, that was a really good trailer that they put out for that DLC. I'm going to give the actual campaign a go now, because actually I wouldn't mind playing that new shit. And that could be another way of hooking people back, especially if it's just sitting there on Game Pass, which it is. And there was something else that popped up in chat as well that I really liked.
Feeling, just on KY's bit there, though, I think there's an argument for not doing DLC, because there are problems with Halo Infinite in terms of the campaign. It did do some things well, it genuinely did, but it was also technically pretty underwhelming. So there are reasons that a reboot could serve the story better. Especially if people are playing it on Game Pass, because essentially you don't need to retain the old to deliver new parts of the story. But at the same time, that was a game that they sold full price on the promise of a 10-year platform. So they had pretty much, they were very vague about whether that included story DLC, but it would be hard to interpret it as not including story DLC. So in a sense, they kind of owe people something.
Yeah, and I do think there is opportunity there. There's opportunity to both address the technical issues whilst also trying to move the story forward and support that thing which is a pillar of Halo. It isn't just the multiplayer. The campaign isn't just tossed aside. It's a big deal. It's why them cutting split screen was mental. It's why then delaying the online co-op and not having that ready for launch was insanity, because it is a huge pillar of that game. It's not, that's why I thought Modern Warfare releasing its campaign a week early as a pre-order bonus was genius, because no one gives a shit about Call of Duty campaigns. They just want to get straight to the multiplayer. Halo is not that. Halo is a game that the co-op, I associate Halo with campaign co-op more than multiplayer in many ways. So that's where those decisions and their approach to it is very odd, which I suppose now I'm saying it out loud makes the case for pull that plug, baby, and just move on to the next one. I liked AJH's point there. They are essentially, this is talking about Microsoft now, they're essentially going through an EA-like shift out of backlash that they got from Halo.
Uh-oh, JT's frozen. Uh-oh. So, momentarily, I don't know whether JT is frozen. He's back.
It led to great stuff. Oh, am I frozen? Am I back? What's going on?
You were frozen and you're back.
I was frozen in the funniest gif there.
Graceful.
Am I back?
Can't tell if I'm back. You are back.
Yeah, we go. So, that led to games like It Takes Two, and it led to games like A Way Out, because they wanted to quickly address the wider perception. Like, look, we're supporting these great independent studios. Please like us. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. There's potentially them trying to wriggle out of a PR nightmare that they've created for themselves with Halo.
And expand alone, painful discourse. If they're going to lean into Game Passes, they don't need to be tied to Halo Infinite. So you're right, and expand alone could make a lot of sense. AJH has said that Destiny 2 was a shit show for year one. And you feel that 343 can do the same. They just need to bolster their team. But for me, I played Destiny 2 around launch, played it a bit, got through its campaign, didn't touch it again for several years. And now when I see a Destiny 2 trailer, it can look as good as it wants, but because it's still Destiny 2, I don't really feel like I can just pick it up and play again. I don't know what's going on in Destiny 2.
That's exactly how I feel about it.
What that means for Halo, though, absolutely nothing. Just thought I'd say it anyway. Who said something about Diablo Immortal? I saw that. Painful discourse. Diablo Immortal was NetEase, you're absolutely right, and it was a true mobile game with mobile monetization, but that doesn't excuse it to me. I get what you're saying. It was NetEase. They are a mobile developer, and they know the most cynical ways to make money out of everyone, but they made that game for Blizzard. Blizzard signed off every single transaction in that game, and the fact that it's on mobile using their IP, for me, nothing justifies how sinister and subversive, Peter's word that I should have used earlier, how subversive the mobile game monetization models are. Read the rest. Painful discourse. I can't. I'm lost, and I want to talk about some other things as well. What else has happened this year?
Is that chat coming in on a different source then? Because I'm only seeing the YouTube chat.
YouTube chat is everything. There is YouTube, there is me, there is you. Any one of those things can drop if my PC decides to be a prick again. Did anyone get the points for the OST? Nobody has got the points for the OST. I actually turned the OST off for a while ago. It's back now, sorry. Good reminder. Isla!
Hey!
She's cheated. Explain yourself, because I need you to explain yourself. The OST wasn't even playing when you've guessed that, so it's highly, highly suspicious.
Searching since you went live, I think she's been desperately... She's waiting for a break in our conversation, holding up like Shazam.
Yeah. Yeah, which is not how the game works. Okay, fine. I am gobsmacked that you would do that. So you were in the lead with almost all of the points for the show, but you've taken to cheating, confessed to your cheating, So all I can do now is say, Peter Morland, with your 1 point for the Atari, you have a storming lead in this game.
Isla's been struck from the record.
Amazing detective, filthy cheat, tomato, potato. You know, that old phrase. Tomato, potato.
Yeah, not even,
regardless of
not
tech
even
problems.
tomato, just like two completely different things.
Yeah.
Hey,
Painful
Peter, that was
discourse.
really nice of you to say. Thank you very much. Regardless of tech problems, this is a good session. Well done. Well, thank you very much. I'm hoping I need to go back through the VOD once we've finished to find the moment where I froze temporarily, because I think I froze in like a kind of like face. Like I look like I completely malfunctioned. So I want to find that.
I'm still very... I'm upset by two things. So, Peter, I appreciate what you're saying there. The reminder of the tech problems is upsetting to me. I hate tech problems. I also hate that I look orange next to JT, who looks pasty white. I'm just as pasty white as JT in real life. I assure you, I cannot be much less pasty.
I mean, I look like, honestly,
orange.
I think I look like I'm shooting light back at you and causing your tan at this point. Like, there's a lot... This is whiter than is necessary from me right now.
Yeah, I did have to turn down, like, this in HDR would hurt. So...
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it would be like watching Commander Shepard's forehead in Mass Effect. It just like shoots light back at the sun. It's no good. So, Isla, JT, do you have a sister? No, I'm an only child. No sister for me.
You have Mario on your t-shirt.
I do. Very much.
Is this a troll? Are you trying to wind me up?
Is this because you love Nintendo so much?
No, do you know, it's the Mario thing. Mario as a character, and I actually don't mind your t-shirt because your t-shirt is the version of Mario that has a right to exist. The one from the previous century.
Okay, good. It's the one that you have sanctioned. This is from the Nintendo store in New York, and I thought I'd wheel it out for this festive stream because I got it at Christmas in New York one year. So,
oh, fancy.
Yeah, felt appropriate to wheel it out now. But no, yeah, Isla, where did that come from? I don't. What? I don't know.
Hey, why you assume that's a corpse? It is a corpse. It is an elf corpse.
He's keeping himself busy.
Yeah, and to be honest, I found the table. I was thinking I'm going to take like a table from Dead Rising. So when I have the foreground in these streams, I do take it from the same game, hence the elf zombie and the blood on the table. I went into it thinking I'm going to find a table that's got some condiments like some ketchup and some mustard and things. Just it makes it pop a little bit more to have the contours on the table at the front. And then that zombie just like helps herself to the table. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's fine. We'll have a zombie there.
Make that work.
JT can go on that side of the screen.
Yeah, just being filleted while we're Q&A-ing. Great.
Painful discourse. Mario is the second worst character in all of gaming. Isla, you know the answer to this, but you're already disqualified, so don't shout it out. The rest of you, who's the worst character in gaming? The one character worse than Mario, for very similar reasons. JT, you're allowed to play on that one.
Ooh. Is it Sonic?
Of course it's not Sonic. How very dare you? Sonic's a good character.
I can't stand him. Oh, look! HHs are coming in hot. He's got my back.
Sonic doesn't necessarily have good games, but he's a fine character.
JT looks Scottish. I mean, should I like break out the Scottish accent? Is that what
No.
we do?
Yes, do.
Okay.
Do some more.
No, that's it. That's it. It's like 3.8 seconds.
Oh, I wanted to do another one. I can't think of a good accent that I want to hear right now. JT looks Portuguese.
Well, I mean, Portuguese in the sense that I'm shooting light at you.
No, Portuguese in like, do an accent for me and play it again. No, it's fine. That's fine. That is all good.
Jesus, yeah. I mean, that's stretching me a little bit there. I'm not sure I can deliver.
Peter, you can love the version of Mario that is on JT's t-shirt. That's
acceptable, right?
As a historical character, fine, served like a massive place within gaming. As a character that exists in this current century, he shouldn't. It's not right. Sauron Grant, How was JT's accent? Let's do a community night playing Halo. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm really terrible at organising things. But...
Who commented that? Because I can't see that in the YouTube chat. Is that somewhere else?
Are you on Top Chat or something? If you look at the top of the YouTube chat, does it say?
Let's have a peek.
Get him.
Yeah.
There we go. So YouTube selectively filters out. It's supposed to be like the name would suggest that it's going to give you just the best comments, but it seems fairly arbitrary. It just every now and again goes, I'm going to remove this one so you don't know what's going on, and just makes no sense to me. YouTube will always default to it. So
yeah, sorry about that. I've now fixed that. Community Halo evening would be very, very jolly. I'd be well on board for that. John Dunn and Usher, I've just seen Sauerkraut saying I'm Scottish. Oh, sorry, apologies for butchering that. Although I don't think my Scottish accent's too bad. If I hit like the alright, if I do that, then I'm alright. But then otherwise, it's just, yeah, I can't maintain it for very long. John Dunn coming and saying looks a little like James McAvoy. Yeah, I got told once that I look like Mr. Tumnus from Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, which I believe was James McAvoy. So if you put him and Harry Kane in a blender, you just end up with me, I think. So, Ida, don't get salty questioning what part of Scotland was that accent. Don't you dare, because listen, you've been cheating all night, just dropping in answers that you've been googling off the stream. So no.
Yeah, we're all still in shock about that. What else has happened though? Where are we now? We've actually been going for quite a while, but half of it was technical difficulties, so we can go a bit longer if you're willing to go a bit longer. Do you have to get up in the morning, JT, or have you got a little while?
I've got a little bit more time. I mean, I've got a 4.5-month-old that has her first cough, so she's had her first sort of like little tiny illness. So she's currently allergic to sleep. So there will be inevitably a point where I'll have to hard Brexit, but I'm good for a little bit.
Hard Brexit will never die. If you go, this is next challenge. Watch through the entire playthrough of Halo and count those. Count how many times we get a hard Brexit in the chat. It will be many. It is JT's. It's like a catchphrase.
It's a signature, man. It becomes a problem where it's my equivalent of saying like too much. You know, some people say that regularly in sentences. Or jolly, which I stole from the Easy Allies, who are my absolute favourite content creators. So that definitely comes up a lot. Jolly and hard Brexit. It's definitely some go-to phrasing. You have one. If you talk about going back to the Halo stream and you still do it, which is it's not even a word. It's a it's that.
Oh, sound effect.
It's just that noise. Yeah,
that is a common one. I do that less so in games. So in real life, I try to give myself a backing soundtrack to make it more exciting. If you ever played a game with the volume down, you'll know that it's not quite the same, but that's real life. If stuff gets boring, I just add some sound effects, some explosions, some neon, some screeches. Not like banshee screeches, but tire screeches. Which
I wasn't thinking like a pterodactyl or something, but it's when there was a great one which like when you've done it before, you've been jumping off of something in Halo, or we've been like you've slid somewhere in Apex. But then I watched one of your Gotham Knight streams, and I think Nightwing just turned around, like just on the spot. You rotated the camera and you went, which just didn't connect with the on-screen.
But that's exactly it. Like the on-screen action, that was a boring motion. I was just rotating a camera, so you just got to add a little oomph. I really can't help it. And every now and again, it does come out around strangers. I've been playing some football with some people that I don't really know, and as soon as I start to get remotely comfortable, then the sound effects come out, and then the questions come out, and I'm like, yeah, that did happen, and it will keep happening.
We had those comfortable vibes from very early on. So that's a good sign, I think, for sure. Decapitation, does that count?
That one, that's a secret in joke. Every now and again, when I hit someone, I like to yell decapitation. That's quite new. Yes. Best reaction I ever had was a Gaz. Yeah, he's a fucking nugget. He is a fucking nugget. Yes, he is.
Was that on a go live?
It was. He spent at least 90 minutes, I would say, with like 200 and maybe 144p camera feed, looking like blurry, pixelated mess. And I didn't mention it because Gaz trying to deal with technical difficulties midstream would probably cause me more difficulty than it's worth. So I kept it entirely quiet. So, I'm not going to trouble Gaz with this burden of technical issues until it was mentioned, and it turned out he was downloading a game on his Xbox while he was doing Go Live.
Oh, Gaz.
And that's when I called him a fucking nugget.
I think I've got... that's good, it's good. You really put me in his place there. I think I've got... despite the puberty that I just went through then, I think I've got the source impression down. I think I've got it, because it's all in like... It's all in the hand that goes with it. You kind of have to hit like a...
This is progress, because it was all the throat and the mouth last time you attempted this, which was a while ago.
I realized that to really deliver on that impression, you have to go full body. It's a full body experience. So, I mean, what a nugget! I loves him.
So, and to answer your question from earlier, Isla, that's the level of celebrity I was talking about.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's too much of a clue because I've given up on waiting for the answer on that one.
Until I see it in the chat, it's not verified. It's not. It cannot be actioned.
Exactly. So what else has happened over the last year? Because this is one of the core reasons. There are multiple reasons that JT's here, and we got interrupted during the sponsorship segment earlier, so we didn't talk about that hitbox very much. But key reasons that JT is here. One of them, he's a good guy, and we have good conversations, and it just helps keep things flowing. The other one is that I can't keep track of time, and I don't know what year anything happened in. So let's go through, because games are my favorite thing. Other games, like highlights of this year, and you've probably done a few of these while I was without sound. But what games have really stood out this year? Chat as well. Elden Ring's already been thrown out there.
Definitely, and I'd imagine Horizon for a lot of people too. I haven't played it yet, but I know I want to. I know that a real surprise for me personally was Rainbow Six Extraction, which I played through Game Pass.
Saw that on ThatHITBOX.com that you have nominated that as a surprise contender.
Yeah, good little sneaking in a bit of branding there. I had no stakes in it. I hadn't really played much of Siege, and I know that it started life as like a limited time mode for that game. But I'm gonna vote in that poll.
This poll.
There is. Oh, Call of the Lamb. Good mention.
Interesting. Good non-sexy.
It really surprised me because I'm still playing it to this day. It's continually throwing new mechanics, new enemies. It's all about repeat trips and that process of kind of leveling up characters and kind of having randomized objectives. I just don't know what it is about that game. I just think a combination of the destructibility, the gunplay, and the ease with which you can pair up with friends. It just ticked boxes for me this year, and I don't know whether I might have bypassed it a little bit if it wasn't a Game Pass release, but I'm glad I got it. And so much so that I would, if it dropped out of Game Pass, I would happily, even now a year later, pick it up in a sale and still buy it because it's great fun.
I expected to like Rainbow Six Extraction. I didn't play any Siege, but I used to look on like over the fence at Siege, and I used to look at the multiplayer like destruction and all of the wood splintering as people are shooting through it, and I thought I can't get into Rainbow Six Siege. Like the community is too advanced and messy on that game now for me to get into it late and try and play it. But this new co-op one that uses similar systems, it uses like operators from Rainbow Six that I don't care anything for, but seeing it have that kind of like you say, scenery destruction and co-op mechanics, I always looked at it and went, what the hell has this got to do with Tom Clancy? This is Black Slime Aliens. But as a game, it might actually be a lot of fun, and I found it not to be that very much. But it's probably, why didn't I like it though? I don't know. The pacing wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be a little more furious than it was.
Oh, sure. Were you playing with randoms?
No, I never play with randoms. Oh, gee, randoms are worse than Mario.
Yeah.
entirely different thing.
The worst character. Number 2 is Mario. Number 1 is random people online.
No, there is an actual worst character. I forgot about that. No one's called that one yet, but yeah.
Sonic. When we play, Mike and I have done a couple of streams where we've just been the two of us. We've deliberately not gone into matchmaking and just kept the two of us, where we know it's balanced for a squad of 3. And I think that increased challenge has helped us play it in a slightly more tactical, slower paced way, and it works in that sense. And it just for some reason, I think maybe because my expectations were a lot lower for it, it ended up being a huge highlight for this year for me.
Expectations are a curse, eh? They're a curse. Did you finish Elden Ring?
And actually, I don't. Here you go. Here's what's going to get me cancelled. I don't really like the Souls games particularly at all.
This is fair.
It's never really ticked boxes for me. I did play Bloodborne in co-op for a bit and ended up just kind of falling off it. Just never really clicked for me. I found it a bit too much of a grind, I think. So no,
and is Bloodborne the only like really... Souls that you had a go at?
Yeah. In any great capacity, I played a little bit of Dark Souls, but that's it. I know they are beloved, and I know I'm very much in the minority there. Just not for me. I find it just a bit too sort of relentless. Enemies respawning and the combat being just that little bit too unforgiving.
Yeah, Elden Ring is a lot lighter in terms of enemies respawning. So on the other Souls games like Bloodborne and everything between Demon Souls and whatever else, they were pretty harsh when you died in terms of how far it would take you back and how much you needed to repeat to get to where you were. Elden Ring is the first Souls game that doesn't really do that. The checkpointing is fairly generous.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I would say though, if you wanted to sample one to see if you can get a feel for it. I'm not a massive Souls person. I haven't played a lot of them, but the remake of Demon Souls was quite enjoyable.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation, because I've got my PS5 now. I picked that up a few months ago, and I think that would maybe be a good entry point for me, because it's a remake, because it's new hardware.
I think it's on Plus.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
I might be completely wrong about that. It might not be. It will be at some point, but it's definitely not as hard as they say. But it gets you used to the kind of deliberate, methodical, slow-paced combat. And I think if you've got one down, then you could probably transition across to Elden Ring, and it does have something about it that makes it worth a little dabble, have an explore, see the world.
Okay.
But I haven't finished it. I haven't finished any of the big games this year. They're all works in progress. It's so difficult to finish games.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'd very much have like that shiny object syndrome problem with single player games. I start something and then something else comes out and I just immediately jump ship to it. Rarely, but I have had a couple of really sort of like, I'm very grateful to have had a couple of review codes sent my way this year. So I had Gotham Knights and Evil West that I got to review, which was lovely, because I'm a very, very small website. So to have access to those was pretty cool. That again hit pause on me being able to play other stuff I'd already started. Multiplayer wise, I've stayed very much on top of it. It was only really until, again, I'm glad you mentioned this, because it was only really until playing the Gunk, ironically, was that I sort of went, no, I'm going to play one game at a time and either have my fill of it. So even if I don't roll credits on the thing, if I feel like I've played X amount of time and I'm happy, I can leave it alone, or I see it through before I move on to my next thing. And that felt very satisfying to take that mindset to it. I've never really done that before, and given how big my backlog is, I think it's the only way I'm ever going to box anything off. But it also will allow me to go, you know what, I've played 20 hours of Dying Light 2 in co-op. I'm getting more and more frustrated. I don't need to see the end of this because I'm not invested in the story. I've had my fill, and I can then put that away happily and be okay with that. That definitely, stuff like, Elden Ring or Demon Souls, that's where perhaps I would need to take a kind of single-minded approach to it and be like, okay, this is the game I'm playing right now, and kind of go from there.
Painful Discourse. Painful Discourse is a Souls man. and says that Dark Souls 2 despawns the normal enemies after you kill them 15 times. Well, that's an interesting mechanic, but isn't that supposed to be like the bad one? Isn't Dark Souls 2 the B studio one that you're not supposed to say that you like? Or I've not played it, so just going by like, every now and again I just pull things out of my ass, and some of them turn out to be true and some of them turn out to be like dreams or nonsense. I don't know, but
welcome to Q&A, sir. That's a really lovely if any of you want any help with in Elden Ring, please hit me up on Xbox. Thank you, Painful Discourse. That's really lovely for you to say.
If you do, if anyone takes up Painful Discourse on that, you are as bad as the people that look at YouTube guides. Do you look at YouTube guides, JT?
I actually was I was a real sucker for like the Prima official guides back in the day. So I had like a Conflict Desert Storm 2 one that I loved. I used to love those. Like I got the Banjo-Kazooie one.
I'm going to let you have those because you were a struggling child that needed the help. Do you look at YouTube guides today, JT?
Oh no, never. I never do it now. I think it would be like the equivalent now would be me like watching someone else like that I know, like a friend of mine, share their screen with me, like on remote play or something, and I'll watch them stream it. That would be the closest I'd say to that. Peter Morland, I've just built myself a gaming PC and now have 2 formats to play on. I think I'll look at PC games on Steam rather than Epic, but need to wind it all in with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Could be an interesting time. Yeah, that just we're spoiled for choice right now with these sub-services, and I look at my play later list on Game Pass, especially if you talked about upgrading your PC. It's a hell of a lot to get through, and when I've got all the major platforms across Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox, it's a tough one. So that I'm really actively trying to change my approach with that and kind of be a bit more single-minded on a game. Whether or not I complete it or not is different, but I'm not bouncing between 8 different things single-player wise because I just don't see other way of getting it done.
Peter, though, while you're there, while you're foraging around in the world of PC gaming, don't completely dismiss the Epic Game Store because they do give away some decent free games, like actual free games. At the moment, Epic are in a phase of blowing money. So a lot of the games that go into subscription services and things like that, Epic are throwing money at and just giving to people because they're desperate for you to use their store. They're giving away 15 games in the space of like the Christmas 12 days. I've not actually looked myself. I say this, I've not got around to launching it and claiming them. But they rotate the free games on like a weekly basis. And some of them are little indie things that you could pick up for a small price. And some of them are pretty big games. They gave away the Evil Dead game a few weeks ago, which only came out this year. Cool. So
yeah, that's cool. I need to get back on that because I definitely was very very diligent with getting those free games when it first launched, and then again I've just fallen off it. John asked, did anyone do the Xbox Wrapped? What is that?
That is PlayStation Wrapped was something that that PlayStation sent out summarizing your year on the console, like what you've played, how long you've played for, what trophies you got.
Yeah.
Xbox Wrapped was the same, but rather than being officially from Xbox, it was from the Xbox Achievements, the True Achievement site, I think. They put it together with a very similar format, wrapping up your year on Xbox, how many hours you've spent, what achievements you've got, what you played the most.
Oh, interesting.
And so on. And I have not, so I'm scared of those services because Xbox did their official one on their like whatever anniversary it was, 20 years of Xbox or whatever, and mine was an abolition because my Xbox account had been signed in the background of my child's console. So it said for 4 out of the previous 5 years, my most played game on the Xbox was Roblox. And I've not looked at
that publicly, and it's over.
I've not looked at the summary from any platform for anything ever since then because they're too upsetting when they give you bad news.
Yeah, that I can imagine that would be. You want to try and avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, thinking about sort of other bits and pieces from this year. I mean, I also just put it up on my site. Sifu is another one that I came out in February, I think. And it's the first game I played on the PS5 when I got mine in September. And just everything from the art style to the minimal HUD to even just the way they use the haptics of the DualSense it just really got me, it just hooked me in straight away. It's so simple, and I think its simplicity is what I really appreciated. So that definitely deserves a nod from this year. Sifu's a good one. That's one again that I feel like I shiny object though, because I started playing that, and then the Last of Us Part 1 remake came out. I started playing that, and then I jumped over to the Gunk, and then I did the Callisto. So it got lost a bit in amongst some other games, and I know it's something I want to go back to.
I'm very similar. Peter, just to answer your question really quickly, everything that you download on your PC, if it has a settings menu that suggests you can allow it or disallow it to start alongside Windows, disallow everything and you won't have that problem. You can have the Epic Game Store, you can have Steam, and you launch them when you need them. They will not consume your PC. The Epic Games launcher is notoriously heavy. The Epic Games launcher is developed in Unreal Engine and takes up way more resource than it should. I don't know why it is so, but it is. So definitely don't let it start up with Windows. Just launch it when you want to take a look and claim some free stuff and play some games. JT, I do very much the same thing, bouncing around between games. I actually find I've got so many games on my backlog across all of the consoles and PC, literally talking like thousands, and I find it fairly paralyzing at times. Like I've got an hour, I can play a game. Which one? Oh, the hour's gone. That happens more than I care to.
I'm just gonna play Knockout City. I'm just not making any meaningful progress. So I always knew in the back of my head that just going, okay, this is the single player game I'm playing right now. Having that mindset in the back of my head, I was already convinced. I just never put it into action before. And it was the Gunk was the first game I did that with. So that definitely really helped me with that. I like the way you described that sort of paralyzing effect that can happen when you're like spoilt for choice. But spoilt for choice in that you kind of go, I know I want to play this, but am I in the mood right now? And then that starts to happen. And I think also being happy to put a game down, that really helped me too. Is not being precious, whether I've spent money on it or it's a subscription service or whatever, or it's free to play. Making peace with not completing everything, if you know that you're done with it, that's really helped me too. To kind of
you're
stuff.
In a better place than me though, because you'll go, oh, what shall I play? I'm just going to play Knockout City. Whereas I often don't actually reach any conclusion, and then I have to go to sleep.
Oh, so it's nothing. You end up being truly like still debating it, and then nothing ends up replacing it.
Yeah, there's just too much. It's just impossible to get stuck into one, especially when I've got. I try not to have too many things on the go at once, because I know that I'll just lose them all. I can't juggle that many things. The best remedy I have to actually get me to play a game is to stream it, because then I have it's set, it's a project, and I need to carry it on to get through. But again, something goes wrong, and I don't do that as often as I should either. Kratos, which year you played Minecraft for the current year that we're just coming to the end of? Well, this is like years gone by. Minecraft's been around forever, so that could be any year or all of them.
That's really cool. That's really cool to hear, though. I love hearing stuff like that. I was just hooked on Minecraft for a year. Just that idea that that older title, regardless of when it came out, it's still ticking boxes for you, and that's the thing you focus on. I love hearing stuff like that. I still play Rocket League every Friday night with 3 of my other mates, and that's been consistent for God knows how long now. So I love hearing stuff like that. Just a game that just is still doing it for you. Last of Us is Factions multiplayer. Still playing it. Still love it.
This is where I say, I always say that I've got 2 kids. They are 14 and 11. But for the longest time, I've been saying that trying to get them to play games on Game Pass is like trying to force feed them vegetables, because they are not interested in trying a big range of games. My oldest boy will play Terraria primarily. What's the other one that he plays? We'll just say Terraria for now. But he's got like 2 or 3 games that he plays day in, week in, month in, year in, just keeps on playing those. Doesn't care to try. I'm like, oh, Lewis, I've got God of War on my Steam account. You can play that while I'm not around if you want. You want to play God of War? Not really. And my youngest lad is the same way. He'll play. He rotates a little bit between like which battle royale game that he plays, but he is Rocket League, Roblox, and either Apex or Fortnite. And they're just not interested.
So interesting. Yeah, that's so interesting, because I've found that if I just make a recommendation, a bit like what you described there, like, oh, hey, what about Uncharted? They'll kind of go, oh yeah, cool, and then it'll be like back to Fortnite, back to Minecraft, or back to VR. And if I sort of like go, hey, do you want to play this with me? And we sit down and play something together. So like Knights and Bikes was a game, a little indie game I played with my stepdaughter, and then also Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on Switch. Because we'd sat down to play it together, that broke through that slight apathy for new things. But I definitely found the same thing too. So I've recommended stuff that I know they'll love objectively. They will have a great time with it. And they'll just go, yeah, but, you know, V-Bucks. You know, they just... So,
yeah.
By the way, chat has exploded since we've come onto this. So from like John downwards, we've got a lot to get through. John mentioning about quick resume. I completely agree. I was so dismissive of that feature when it was announced as just being real sort of like just marketing bollocks, you know, just didn't really mean anything. It profoundly has been helpful for me on my Series X, being able to switch between stuff.
Do you
it's
trust
irritating
it?
Obviously with online games because it disconnects, but yeah.
Do you trust it, or do you still make sure you save your games?
I still save my games just in case, but case in point, Fable 3, which I'm playing cooperatively with my wife, has been in quick resume for nearly 3 months, and it's still there. And still ready to go. So
I use it.
Yeah,
So
quick resume absolutely was a win.
Do you know, I have no idea, because I said this at the start of the show, so I don't know if I said this while people could hear me or while we were having technical issues. But for me, quick resume. If I've got quick resume, I play loads of different stuff. So if I fire up the Xbox, I've got the Dragon Ball Fighters game is in there. I've got.
Nice.
I tried like Double Kick Heroes, which I didn't particularly like, but it's still in there. I've still got Psychonauts in there from another time that I was playing it. I've got like a bunch of single player games, and I can just go and jump in them and play them.
Yeah, nice.
On the PC and in virtual reality, you don't have anything like quick resume, but I can fire up those devices and I can say, what do I fancy playing? And realistically, I'll spend an hour and not play anything because I can't decide. But I've got the option to jump into whatever game that I want. And there's no quick resume, so it's not quite as convenient, but it's an open field. I can do what I want. And on the PlayStation, you've got that suspend resume, which is like the Xbox had the previous generation. There's one game that will suspend. Never works. Like you get a new game, like God of War Ragnarok came out, and they do like minor patches every other day that take it out of suspend resume. But nonetheless, I'm hopeful that it will work. So if I have God of War in suspend, ready to play again, I fire up the PlayStation and I cannot play anything except that game because I don't want to lose what's suspended. So this is why I didn't play that Dragon Crown until this week. I had a power cut on my PlayStation 5 and I was like, oh
yeah, of course.
I'm free from the grip of having God of War in ready to resume. I can look at the PlayStation and play something else. And I jumped on the store and I was like, that one costs £3. I'm going to play it because I'm just going to enjoy my freedom. I'm going to celebrate by playing something other than God of War for a bit.
Yeah, nice. There's definitely some games that suit it better than others as well. So like something like Hades really fit quick resume for me because I sometimes be between multiplayer stuff and I go, oh, you know, I'm just going to do a couple of these rooms. Just do maybe like half a run and then just pause it and back out, and it's just sitting there waiting for me. So roguelites really suit quick resume. And actually, when they added the ability to suspend the suspend feature in Returnal as well on PS5, I really appreciated that because someone else mentioned about timing. You know, game length being the problem. You know, having so much to, you know, so many long games to play, it's impossible to get through them all. And because games like High on Life that Sauron Grant mentioned, they're a little bit more kind of manageable in terms of length. I think there's a real case for that. I've heard that Callisto's quite short as well, which I'm grateful for too, because I really want to get through it.
I'm a big fan of shorter games. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the shorter games like costing a whole load of money. If Callisto Protocol is like a 7-hour single player campaign, then maybe £70 is a bit steep, but
which is what I mean. I got it for 45 on PS5, which I think is a good price. But I think that's a fair point. It is relative to its cost, and also to your interest too, because I know that a lot of people would look at me paying £50 for Mario Tennis Aces on the Switch and be like, "You're mental." But my love for that series is like, oh no, I have to be day one on that. For some people, they just don't see that value, but I do. So it is relative to your interest as well. Some people could justify that easier than others, I think. AJH
is semi-ashamed and proud to say this. several hundred days on Ark Survival Evolved. AJH, I don't know why you're semi-ashamed of that fact. That's not nearly enough. It should be at least like 80-90% ashamed. Ark, what are you doing? I couldn't get into that, but I know other people like you that have played so much of that game. Occasionally other ones as well, but Ark is the one that seems to really get people grinding for thousands and thousands of hours, which is why I try and steer clear of survival games, because that seems a necessary element to get maximum enjoyment from them, is to invest thousands and thousands of hours that I don't have. So, but does that mean though, as someone that spent hundreds of days in Ark Survival Evolved, are you looking forwards to Ark 2, or does it look like nonsense? That's my question specifically for AJH and anybody else that is a fan of Ark, if there are any of those, but I'm scared of Ark.
That's a good question. Like AJH also mentioned getting Callisto and Dead Island 2 free with his new GPU. Dead Island 2, I cannot wait for next year. That game has been in development since before I was born, and I just can't wait. I just think it looks amazing. It looks way better than it has any right to, and I think because I've kind of gone off Dying Light 2 now, I've got a gap in my gaming space for a sort of a open world co-op zombie game. So Dead Island 2, I think will tick that box for sure.
It gives me Saints Row reboot vibes for Dead Island 2. I hope it turns out better.
Oh, okay.
But
I think it will turn out better than Saints Row. I didn't touch that in the end because I like the older games, but the new one looked poop.
It did.
But yeah, I think I have higher hopes for Dead Island. I think it's in a better spot for sure. So, but Studio Wildcard is a terrible track record of releasing the new content, so I'm holding my breath. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Pinch of salt it for sure. But the recent delay too for something like Dead Island is I'm glad for, because let it cook. It's taking this long to make, so let it cook.
Let it cook. It's a burnt crisp, but
it
might get better.
It is well done at this point.
Keep it in the oven.
It's a well done steak and setting off the fire alarm. But yeah, let it cook. Let it cook.
So people that are here in chat, we are definitely coming to the end, because I know we had technical difficulties that ruined the first chunk of time, but we have run for a little while, and I could talk about this stuff for ages because it's a whole year and we've not even started looking at next year yet. So I'm going to ask all of you, and I'm going to ask JT a little bit about games coming next year, highlights, things that you're looking forward to. But if there are any last ditch topics that you want to throw in there, now's the fucking time. I don't know why I said it like that.
No, I really like your sort of Danny Dyer version of that. That's really good.
Danny Dyer wasn't. It was Lucy Liu. It was Kill Bill. If any of you have anything else to say, now's the fucking time.
Really good.
That
and
energy.
Like, dropping Tarantino references at 6 minutes past 11. This is what we need.
Which might be completely wrong. I've not seen that film for a long time, but that's how it stands out in my memory. I think she starts coming. Anyway, if you have, then go ahead and say the things. No aggression channeled in your direction. I will not be cutting off anyone's heads.
Well, is that for anything that we're looking forward to next year?
For chat, it's for any topic they want to throw in. For you though, JT,
cool.
Yeah, pick a couple of highlights coming up. We've got a whole year. You can pick anything you want.
Redfall is one I'm very looking forward to next year.
Dishonored fan?
Big Dishonored fan. Yeah, I love Arcane. So the idea of them making
No, it wasn't David Attenborough. Sorry, Harry.
We can't believe these penguins have migrated. I just can't believe it. Right, fucking that's a very different day. What documentary have you been watching? Yeah, Redfall for me. Just an open world first-person co-op vampire hunting game. Yes, please. That ticks everything. So
the trailers look so sparse though. What kind, like, so you like Rainbow Six Extraction, which on the scale of like Left 4 Dead to, I don't know if there is a scale. I get the impression that Redfall is on the opposite end of Back 4 Blood. So rather than flooding like enemies everywhere, it seems you've got a team of 4 and there might be one vampire to snipe. I don't know. The trailers just look sparse on the enemy front. How do you think it plays out? Is it a stealth game?
No, I don't think it's a stealth game. I think it's got optional stealth in it, and I think they're perhaps trying to big up the vampire characters as like mini bosses. But I think there'll be plenty of fodder for you to go through, much like an Arcane Dishonored game. You know, there's always like the target you're trying to eliminate, but you don't really want those games necessarily crawling with hordes of characters. I think it would be more interesting for it to be a bit more slower paced. So no, I think that a fair point, but I do think they've probably played up the horror angle of some of those trailers and restricted the enemies so that they give that kind of vibe, but actually it'll be probably a little bit more bombastic in its final version.
It looks. I've got the trailer playing now, and it looks really clean. I like that art style will stand the test of a lot of time. Like, it will still look good 10 years down the line. But there is so little going on in everything that I've seen of it, so I don't know how it's going to be once it's in my hands. Obviously, hope for the best.
Well, is it going to be more atmospheric, and they're going for a slightly more sparse open world? Maybe. It looks like the actual locations are really detailed, but like you said, it's not a huge amount of enemies just rocking around. So, Peter asks, will Uncle Phil go next year? No, I don't think so. I think he's going to stick around for the foreseeable. I think Xbox's first party getting into a more consistent state will need to happen before he decides to jump ship.
He's going to get fired.
That's a Benedict Cumberbatch reference. Kratos mentioned PSVR 2. And hopefully seeing something on Wolverine. I don't think we're going to see anything on Wolverine until after Spider-Man 2. I think they're going to go quiet on that for the next year.
Well, they've said that Wolverine's not due out until like 2025 or something. I don't think
we see anything before next year, before 24. I think Nelson will go in 2023. Yeah, actually, maybe retirement is approaching. Oh, yeah, AJH, I'm glad you mentioned the finals. I played the alpha of that on PC and loved it. Great destruction engine. It reminded me of Bad Company 2.
You're not allowed to talk about that, JC.
Oh, am I not?
It's fine. I would think that alpha was fairly locked down on the NDA, but...
NDA, I suppose, in the sense of like proper coverage. I haven't shared any gameplay or insider scoops. Only that it was, I'm really glad that it's been announced for console, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's definitely one I'd forgotten about that, actually.
That does look really good. I'm looking forward to that one as well. I have not played the alpha, so I can say whatever I want about it. It's all fine.
You know so much.
I know nothing, so I can say whatever I want. Right, it does. It looks good. Destruction everywhere. Everybody likes to see things smash. I especially like to see things smash. On Redfall, I think we can all agree that it'll be much better in virtual reality. Kratos, I'm with you. PlayStation VR 2 is a big highlight for the next year for me. Just to see some reinvigoration in the VR content space after Microsoft has spent the last 2 years trying to destroy it. Those are my main ones. I'm very much looking forward to on my own gaming sense. I'm very much looking forward to bloody Facebook Meta bastards fixing my headset so I can use my Quest Pro properly. Silksong I'm not looking forward to, Painful Discourse, because I didn't like Hollow Knight. Part of that might have been, again, expectations being sky high, because a lot of people love Hollow Knight, but I'm not a massive fan of Metroidvanias in general. And Hollow Knight, I tried it on stream, and no, not for me. Phil Spencer, how long has he got at Xbox? I actually don't think it's a wild question, because we know that Game Pass is not meeting Microsoft's internal expectations at the moment. And how long they'll be happy to revise their expectations, how low they'll be willing to revise their expectations, is a fair question. I think the big question on Game Pass at the moment is they have staked a lot on it being able to grow beyond the current audience. And you see it everywhere, and me too. Like, I also assumed that if you tear down enough barriers, that more people will play games than do currently. So you've got this audience of like potentially up to 200 million people playing consoles. But if you can stick it on their Samsung TV, if you can bring these games to people, if you can deliver them more easily, then more people are going to play. And that is a really critical assumption that hasn't been proven out yet.
Yeah, it's the possibility of cloud maybe expanding Game Pass, because it's the ultimate subscription to access that. there's definitely an opportunity there. It's whether it can be truly leveraged. I thought Sauron Grant's comment there, I would normally buy one game every couple of years. This year I played 76. That's amazing. And that's ultimately what they're hoping for, I think, is that those engagement statistics. They want people playing games, and the more people playing their stuff increases the chances they'll buy DLC or buy microtransactions. So it's a very smart approach that they're taking. I just think it's content driven. Like any of the major, like, you know, Netflix or Disney Plus or Prime, you subscribe to those things because of the content that's on them. So if Microsoft can start, you know, actually releasing some games, I think we will see an up when Starfield comes out. There's going to be more Game Pass subscribers tied in with
it's
that.
definitely going to push it a bit, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think they are. I don't know if they're right or wrong. Nobody knows if they're right or wrong yet, but I think they are banking on it expanding beyond the audience that they can reach in consoles. They're banking on these Samsung TV things, expanding it, and mobiles and all the rest of it, blowing game. You make gaming cheaper for me and you and Sauron Grant, who's playing 76 games. The reason that works is that you're selling it to more people. The subscription is broader and wider, so you are getting more over time, delivering loads of content, but you're making more money. And it is fairly critical that, I don't know, is anyone else in your household like more likely to play games? The problem that they've got is, for me, I think, the challenge that they're all trying to solve is what kind of content the people that don't have consoles actually want to play. What kind of content can reach a broader audience? And everything about Microsoft's strategy has been about reaching a broader audience, and they seem to have hit a wall. And that's where I think it's a good question on Phil Spencer, because they need to get over that wall.
Yeah, and I think if you continue to, you know, if it's going to eventually plateau what you're able to get from a console-specific audience, something like the Activision deal, and then owning King and Candy Crush and monetizing that through their ecosystem in a new way, that's another route into mobile that could then open things up for them. Traditionally, they haven't really done a lot with the mobile space or VR, but then VR, I feel like, is still going to be for a very small subset of a hardcore audience. It's not going to be the thing that expands it out to everyone. But I do think a sort of, I know they cancelled that box, didn't they, because they couldn't work out the financials of it, but having some kind of Chromecast style stick could be a great way of encouraging people to try it. And who knows, if parents see that, maybe more willing to invest in it themselves, because maybe they used to play games back in the day, quote unquote. I do think the cloud is going to be bigger for Microsoft than people assume. And
I always thought that for the last like good number of years, I thought that, and Microsoft definitely thought that. And doubts have been introduced recently with Stadia shutting down and with Amazon pretty much canning Luna. They haven't canned Luna, but they've cut down on staff heavily. So there are serious questions on whether, and Microsoft themselves are saying to regulators that cloud gaming is actually unproven, might be a bit rubbish. And these are serious questions, and these are the ones where I think Microsoft have staked a lot in this being the future. So if it plays out as they've predicted, and as most, like a lot of people were quite confident it would play out, then Phil's going to be fine, obviously, and Microsoft will flourish, do very well, and Xbox will be around for a long time, and games may be better or maybe worse for it. We shall see. If that audience isn't as real and tangible and achievable as everybody assumed, then he's got a problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I know that the meme is, hey, Xbox always saying, look out for next year. I do ironically think Xbox have set themselves up for a good 2023. Even though I know that is very easily memeable.
Their content pipeline should be so good once that dam comes down, because they've got so many studios that they can't not deliver games to people like us. Like, they can't fail to deliver content. It will be very difficult to have that many people on staff and somehow stop them from making good games.
Precisely. Yeah. And I think that I think that's, again, it's very easy to make fun of that, because for so long they've been saying, hey, wait for 2016, you're not going to believe it, and that's happened a lot. But I do think they've set themselves up to a good place. I do believe content is king, and that is the thing that's going to drive more players who are Xbox players into Game Pass. And given the inroads they've made on PC as well, and the cloud alongside that, I do think they've laid a foundation that could be very successful there. But it's content that they need, and they need it regularly, which they have not had this year at all. So yeah.
Xbox is still getting more money from Sauron Grant than they did in the old system. I'm sure they're getting more money from a bunch of people. They're getting less money from me than if they had released 3 games, I would say. Is that true? I do buy some things on the Xbox. I don't know. Difficult one to say on there. I wouldn't... no, my thought just died. I had one, and then the clock struck 11:18 and it splattered out my left ear. So, PlayStation needs a good competition. Their model of the banger is running thing. You know, I hate to admit it, but I'm really struggling with God of War Ragnarok. I'm really struggling with that game, which is why it's had that hold over my PlayStation, sitting there in my suspend regime. I love the God of War games from start to finish. I really want to play this and get to the good bit, but it is wearing me thin. So I'm optimistic, and I've said this for the last few weeks whenever I talk about that game. I'm optimistic that my takeaway impression when I finish it is going to be like massively positive, and I'll come away like, I remember this game fondly. I loved it. It had such a strong story at the start and the end, but I probably, I don't know, I have to acknowledge that this middle bit is wearing me thin. Do I want a Go Live style link dump at the end? No, Isla, I would like the Go Live style link dump right now, because why not? So JT's channel and website, we were interrupted when we were talking about it. JT, please give us a little bit more about ThatHITBOX, what people can expect from you in terms of content, where they can find you, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. So it's thathitbox.com, and I'm at ThatHITBOX on Twitter. It's what started as very much a sort of hobby project has kind of ended up like I've ended up working with PR teams, and the big thing, which I never expected, by the way, expected that kind of support. And the big thing for us is kind of like a USP is our retrospective. So we've been doing these really big deep dives into older titles, and we've got several now on the brew. We've got one coming up for Red Faction Guerrilla, and another for the Brothers in Arms series, which are two series I'm very fond of. And that's kind of ended up becoming our thing. Just kind of we're not trying to be first, we're trying to be different. That's our whole spiel, I guess. And then also dipping a toe into stuff like this, into streaming, into guesting on shows, and actually taking something that I already love doing as a hobby and trying to make something of it. So that's us. That's ThatHITBOX. So
you also have a question from Isla. Can you explain the logo? Which get that logo. Can you explain the logo?
Yeah. It was a really cool shape that I made out of 2 other shapes, and the idea of a hitbox. It was a hitbox image with a little bullet in the corner. That was it. I really wish there was something more profound, but there really isn't. That was it. So, and by the way, just seeing some of the other bits and pieces, like Peter, some really nice feedback there about the format of this. Like, I don't want to encroach regularly onto Ace's stuff. I'm always really, really grateful to be included, of course. But this has been a blast, and thank you guys so much for some of the positivity in chat tonight. That's been really, really lovely for us to see. So thank you. Always have really good people come along and support these things. So thank you everyone for that. Thank you JT for coming and sitting by the zombie. I didn't want to be near the zombie, so you've done that. You've carried the conversation for me and made it really easy. If you are here watching now or after the fact, please forgive the technical issues. Hit the like button. Share this around. I know these are small. They're actually quite a bit of effort. It took ages to put all of this stuff together. So thank you for coming along and letting me share it with you. All these conversations, as we always do. I'm not sure if we have Go Live this Saturday. It's a little bit up in the air at the moment because it would be Christmas Eve that it falls on. And people maybe don't want us to do that, or our guests maybe don't want to do that. So if there isn't a Go Live on Saturday, I'm still not going to wish you a Merry Christmas right now, because I'll see you all on some kind of stream in the meantime. I'm not an arse. Have a really good Christmas if I don't see you before then. Really good holiday, break from work, all of the good things in the family time that you can have. Wish everyone the best on that.
We are gonna. You nearly forgot to hit the like button. You need to make an alt account and hit it twice then as compensation. No, you don't need to do that. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks JT. Gonna close it out there. Also, obviously, this is a different format to the usual week in, week out one. JT will definitely be around on my streams and things in future, but do give me feedback on the two-person format, what you want to see from the Q&A's and other content and stuff like that, because that's a shortcut for me. I can take your feedback directly and deliver you things that you want to see. So, very helpful. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. And quick, JT, shout something Scottish.
All right, Merry Christmas.
No, Scottish. No,
Thanks, everyone.